Family, we have a lot of fun on this Pirate Life Radio, and I'm real honored to be able to do it. I like it a lot. I enjoy all I get from it, but I want to talk for a minute about a really serious issue that I hear about. You hear all these things about fat shaming, slut shaming, gay shaming, like whatever it is, right? And anything really that is solely meant to diminish somebody without the effort to build them up and make them better, I feel like is a super wrong-headed thing to do. And I think that you get into those positions in life, and sometimes maybe you're just playing around with people or talking or whatever. It doesn't seem like a big deal. But there's the idea that whatever you utter in this world, whatever noises you make with your mouth, they matter, and they go out into the world and they echo. And maybe, like your email you think you've erased, it never unerases. And on that note, a lot of people will talk about, this issue, and they'll try to make something a non-thing, which it is a thing. And they try to make it separate and be divisive. A lot of people say you only have 4 fingers and a thumb. Well, let me ask you this. How different is that thumb from a finger? Like if you had a little person or a dwarf and they were amongst other people that weren't. You would say those are all people, wouldn't you? And I just want to stand up for thumbs everywhere, I guess. And really put it out there that, thumbs are fingers too. Okay, guys? And maybe they're even more special because a thumb is a finger, but a finger maybe isn't necessarily a thumb. And it's just something to think about. Thank you. I'm really glad you let me take this time to get that off my chest. And of course you let me take this time because it's my goddamn podcast and I decide when to put the batteries in this thing. I'm in New York City. I'm at 48 in Lexington right now, and I'm about to go see my friend Steven Dudian and go down to Hub 17, the Lululemon store. They got a Caveman Coffee down in there. They love us. It's great. I love it when, broads and wonder unders love Caveman Coffee. Hello. What a union we have there. I don't know if you checked out the podcast that Jamie McKinney put up for the Men's Shop podcast. If you look for that on iTunes, me and Jardine are on there. And the other night we just did one with Troy Denning, good tattoo artist down here in the city. And this podcast, what a learning expedition we went on. Even-Esh, everybody. Even-Esh. I just can't say enough about the guy. Search him on Facebook, on iTunes for any kind of stuff that he's done. Look at his YouTube page. He's one of the most inspirational guys out there, and he's hard won, hard fought through it. There's a lot of guys that are full of shit out there that are in the world that are saying, I'm an expert at this and that. And then you got some poor guy like Tony Little at 4 a.m. on his Gazelle out there pretending he's all about some shit. Or, God bless Richard Simmons. Love that guy, but can he please get in shape? I mean, he's in the fitness industry. Amazing. Anyway, Even-Esh is the real goddamn deal. And he does it for fun and for free. Just like all the people that I know that do the best shit in the world. He's out there putting in way too many hours than he's paid for. And he gets paid in different ways, as we all see that certainly happens and becomes incumbent. But it's one of those ideas that, some people want to be a coach because they feel like there's nothing else they can do. They're like, well, I'm a pretty good athlete, so I guess I'll be a coach. And then there's other people that are real coaches. And I consider myself that. I see guys like Logan Gelbrich is like that for sure. Lacey Mackey is like that. We got a multitude of people. Jody Jardine, Jody Escabel. All my folks at the gym, Heather McKernan, Ruben Rivera. Ruben's a real coach's coach, man. He just does it for the love of it. Lorenzo goddamn Hernandez. Benzo's gone and he's made adaptive programs. He does whatever he can to learn and grow and become a better coach all the time. These are the people I love to surround myself with. They make me better, and they bring different conversations. So I can grow, maybe, but really what my growth is for is so I can be more helpful to everybody around me. And the better I can help the next guy coming along. And Zach Even-Esh, is hard fought, and he's very outspoken about both his failures and his successes, and he speaks about what those look like, about what failure and success looks like. He speaks against, he used to be a school teacher, and what he came up against in the public school system, so anyway, I could go on, but I want to let you get in the podcast. It's I think 2.5 hours long, and he's just written a book called The Encyclopedia of Underground Strength and Conditioning, and it's how to get stronger and tougher, and it's like, one of the reasons that he loved writing this book, that he really wanted to get it done, was because he had pictures in here. The first publisher he had differences with, but then he's got pictures in here of all his kids that he helps. And he's like, man, they thought a book was coming, and if I don't follow through with this and get this book done, then, what are they going to think of me? And man, goddamn. The guy's special. He's a special, special human, and I'm glad he's in the world. He raises the bar for all those around him, raises the bar for me. So, without any further polishing of this beauty, I'm going to let him just uncover it himself, and Keith and I sit there and kick back and listen for a lot of it, and it's a beautiful thing. And also real grateful to have my co-host there for this. To have Keith in it is are a real special thing. And so these podcasts where we're all together, they're few and far between, but they're close to my heart. So without any furthering, here's Zach Even-Esh.
A big Tait Fletcher.
Powerful Tait Fletcher.
Is a real alpha male.
Weightlifter.
He's a stuntman.
Movie star.
Robust, enthusiastic individual.
He's huge, by the way. He's like a monster person.
One of the sweetest guys I know.
He's bigger than life.
Actor.
Entrepreneur.
Fighter.
The jiu-jitsu technician. He's also bald and he has all these tattoos. He's just a big fucking man.
A man, a myth, a legend.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher.
What's up, Tait Fletcher, you fat motherfucker?
Tait Fletcher. Tait Fletcher is
Tait Fletcher.
Teddy bear. Motherfucking Fletcher, ladies and gentlemen.
That's Tait Fletcher, everybody.
The great Tait Fletcher. Tait the animal Fletcher. Tait the savage Fletcher. Always moving. There's no stillness with Tait Fletcher. You will find no dust.
Tait Fletcher's in the house, ladies and gentlemen. He just said the word erection.
Tait Fletcher.
Tait Fletcher's in the fucking house. Tait Fletcher!
Tait really blasts out some serious hardcore truth bombs, and I think you're really going to enjoy it.
Hey everybody, welcome, man. Zach Even-Esh here with us, me and Keith today, and in some kind of schwank hotel in Manhattan, and just going over, please, Zach, say hello, man.
What's happening,
it's great
everybody?
to have you here.
This is amazing.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming up for it, man.
I'm pumped to be up here with you guys.
So you're just talking about flow wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So flow, to make a long story short.
It's so hard jumping in a conversation when you just start recording, but
Well, Keith came down, he's talking about wrestling, and I'm like, man, it's wrestling season here. I think on the West Coast they start earlier, but on East Coast, mainly in this area, Jersey, New York, it starts right after Thanksgiving, and then it goes into, depending how well you do, if you make it to States, you're in early March. So now through March is just I wrestled so long ago, but it's like you can't get it out of your system. It's just crazy. So I've been following it like crazy. Flow Wrestling's like an all wrestling website. I mean, they travel the world.
Oh, cool.
They've been doing mini documentaries, and it's crazy what technology did for wrestling.
That's the thing, talking about how you're still with it, and there's that certain kind of camaraderie and like amongst kids, amongst people that used to wrestle, because these kids sacrifice so much. You're a little kid and you're not eating, you're dieting, you're making weight, you're killing yourself in the practice room every day, and you're still training for combat. It's not like an athletic event where you're like, I'm faster than you. You're training for combat.
Yeah.
And these guys do this year round, and just like to see these kids. I was watching a documentary with Chris Pratt and watching these kids go to state championships and the high ups and downs, and these kids just selling out, doing everything. And what I do, that translates to MMA really well, and there's always that brotherhood, and there's always that
Yeah,
understanding.
There's a lot of guys that when they get out of college wrestling, you guys see them, they go into MMA because it's like that's what they've been. But you start to not know anything else. It's like, especially if they start at the younger years, they're kind of born and bred into being combative. So
there's this thing about that, and Tate and I talk about it. Is like if you wrestled and you spent all those 10,000 hours from a little kid. These guys start from when they're really little, just wrestling with other human beings and just learning their body and how to move their body. And like first time they tried jiu-jitsu, the first time I tried jiu-jitsu, I did a full jiu-jitsu match with somebody, and I did really well because like, oh, you're trying to put my arm this way. Well, I don't want you to do that, so I know how to do this.
Yeah, the first time in jiu-jitsu you learn anything is like, I don't know anything, but I know that if you want this, then I don't want that. And like, so you just work oppositionally all the time. But like now with MMA, with the advent of that, it's like these guys that are high-level wrestlers, it's the first opportunity they've ever had to like, I think wrestling translates into their life very well for like how it colors and helps embolden every kind of discipline that they have in their life thereafter. But like if they want to go into athleticism and combat still, fuck, MMA is the only thing that's offered these other guys an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, because some of them, or a lot of them, or a lot of us that you wrestle, then let's say you're done with wrestling. Let's say you're cut. When I was in college, our college team got cut. It was a D3 program, and I got into coaching right away, coaching wrestling. And then
and you've been coaching since then.
Right when I got out of
that was the first instance
yes.
that you got into like I want to start training people.
Right out of high school, my freshman year in college started just working with the recreation program, coaching the rec team, and back then it was legit. This is 94. This is 94. Now there's wrestling clubs almost everywhere. Almost like reminds me of how CrossFit started. You started seeing one here and there. Then you started seeing them one every town.
Like
same thing with jiu-jitsu.
Only on the coastal towns. It was like it didn't get into the middle of the country very quickly.
So when I started getting into, I mean, it wasn't even jiu-jitsu. You guys know Big Dan Miragliata. So there was a place in when I lived in a town called Edison. It's like right outside of Rutgers University, 10 minutes away. I was looking for, there was basically a part of me that was like, in my younger years, I didn't have that edge. I wasn't mean. And then as 18, 19, 20, I started just feeling like I'll fight anybody. Like I'll go to town. And I remember researching stuff. It wasn't called MMA back then. It was called NHB. And Dan had a place. They did shoot fighting. And I mean, there's really, there was not a whole lot of instruction there. It was just kind of like whoever was there was kind of in charge of what was going on. One day you'd be training in Muay Thai. I remember like Dan was like demonstrating like a flying arm bar. I'm like, this is my fucking third day here, dude. Like, what the hell is going on here? And I remember entering Grappler's Quest. I don't know if it was Worlds or Nationals with 2 weeks of training.
What year was that?
This is, I remember I was coaching middle school wrestling. I was like 26, so we're going to say maybe 02, 03.
Yeah.
And it was
the same year I was going.
Yes.
We were going to those.
So it was like this early time, and there weren't even a lot of guys. I remember showing up, and they said, what's your background? I said, I wrestled in high school. They said, oh, you go intermediate division or whatever that was. I was like, but I've done jiu-jitsu for 2 weeks. They're like, you're a wrestler, you go intermediate. I said, all right. And I remember at the time I had competed in some open tournaments, and I just was freaking confident. I was ready to go. And I remember my first match, a guy ankle locked me, and I kind of panicked and tapped out right away. And I was so pissed. The next match, I was like, motherfucker, whoever's coming next, like, I will die. I will, like, do whatever I got to do to win. And I always remember it because it was a judo black belt, and I had 4 years high school experience. And to make a long story short, the match is over. We go into overtime. I'm like, how's this overtime? I think I took this guy down like 20, 30 times. Just taking him down. I was ready to get my hand raised. They're like, overtime. I'm like, overtime? What the hell's going on here? Going to overtime, same thing. Take him down. I'm taking him down. And I'm just like experiencing, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm about to get my hand raised. It's been a long time. They raise his hand. I'm like, what the hell? Ref's like, dude, you had about like 70 near submission attempts on you. So there's like so many points. He's like, you're taking him down. He's like, but he almost arm locked you, triangle, you choked you.
Yeah.
All I knew to do was from what I had seen in the Smashing Machine. I take him down and try to do a neck crank. Like, this is how long ago that is.
Yeah.
And for the younger people listening, the thing that like pushes me with the coaching is that when you're young, like, you don't know what you don't know, meaning you think there's next season, you think there's next year, but then you're 30 before you know it, you're 40 before you know it, you look back and you're like, and that's the thing that fires me up, is that, the pain of regret is like, if you were just a little more prepared, you could have had a better story to give, sitting here.
There's a Brazilian guy you wrestled against, probably at Grappler's Quest, huh?
No, he was a
Those things are so political. Is my like the
Every time he did a takedown, he's probably pulling guard. Like, oh no, he was pulling guard. So it's not
I
a
didn't know
takedown.
none of that.
Right.
I was at Dan's place for 2 weeks. I didn't even know open close guard.
Dan's big too, and like here's a flying armbar. Like, are you out of your head?
Yeah,
It's hilarious.
Dan was just doing I remember when Dan would demonstrate stuff, especially like his hands. Like, he was big then, he was huge, but he was so agile. It was amazing. And there were some guys there.
That was like John Peretti then back that like that. That was kind of like those guys.
Remember
were
the
early
guy-
days, and so they were just leaving
This is
the New
like-
York scene in that time.
Yeah, I remember the guy that I had grappled against was from Sarah's school, and but I felt just with all the wrestling and the coaching of wrestling and the being on the mat, like, I felt good. If you were shooting in on me or shooting in on you, you tried to throw me. I knew how to roll through everything, but I didn't know jiu-jitsu. And then after losing, so if that was national, that may have been worlds, but there was like 12 guys. I'm like, how's this worlds? There's 12 dudes here. 2 weeks or 3 weeks later was going to be nationals. And I remember using kind of the strategy of Dan Gable of just outwork your competition. So I started training like crazy, showing up to Dan's place. I'd lift, I'd do body weight work, then I'd go to his place. And I remember that's when I tore my ACL leading up to, that would have been nationals. And all that stuff was here. It was like North Jersey, going to be North Jersey. And after I tore my ACL, I had a couple injuries leading up to that. And that's what just, that surgery and going into that, I was like, I'm going to wage war on like whatever it takes to train a combative athlete. And then that segued more into just these, younger athletes. Last year past few years I've been doing some work with colleges. Like last year I was at Lehigh for the year. A couple years before that, Rutgers was traveling to the Edison gym, a good number of those guys. But, now my thing is like getting these younger kids, like the more time passes, the more I realize that if we don't get to them early and make them not even tough, but build confidence, build some success, build some athleticism. If I catch a kid at age 14, 15, 16 who didn't have like any kind of rough upbringing, it is getting super hard to get that kid to turn the corner, meaning to even have the desire to want to win versus I'm just happy to be part of this team and I can't stand it. Just makes me nuts.
So many guys, you hear that story, there's just that kid, like, kids don't want to, like, naturally, like, I'm not going to spend all the time playing with the kids or getting in trouble, whatever. I'm going to get up early and go run and then make weight and wrestle. We're talking about that. Just builds so much character. Like, I remember, I don't know what I would have done. Like, I was in middle school and I remember just getting off a bus or someone. And I just remember the one guy, the bus driver actually happened to be the wrestling coach. And I was getting off a bus somewhere and he's like, hey, what, are you going to wrestling practice today? Like, what? Wrestling practice today at 4:30 or whatever, and I was like, okay. And I think that one moment, that one interaction, kind of saved my life because, like, I'm an aggressive kid. I got this natural thing inside, and
Yeah.
I found a way to release that safely in the world and learn so many lessons from that, and it grew into what it is today. And now you're touching this with kids. You're seeing kids and making them go to wrestle and get out whatever. In today's world, that testosterone is really frowned upon. That hyper aggressive male attribute. Yeah.
One guy told me, my neighbor, he's a former department chair, phys ed, athletic director. He goes, I think in like 10, 15 years, a lot of public schools going to get rid of football, going to get rid of wrestling.
Sure.
He goes,
That Title IX was on the way to doing
it's
that.
not even
They
the
want-
Title IX is for the colleges, but in the high school level, he goes, the administration is so scared and probably, he didn't say tired, but they're scared of lawsuits. And he goes, I get a phone call 6, 7, 8 times a week of a parent complaining that, hey, my son didn't start, my son didn't this. And like that show I was telling you on Flow Wrestling, they did a documentary on Terry Brands. Terry and Tommy were twin brothers, wrestled under Coach Gable. Now the
Very
Coach Iowa,
aggressive, like
super
powerful,
aggressive.
powerful
and his
bro,
whole
yeah.
thing is, he's like, you don't deserve nothing. He's like, you get what you earn. You get, and I take that, like that was taught to me through wrestling, and I just take what I learned in wrestling. I say, just if my business needs to succeed, then it's gonna succeed as much as I earn it to succeed. My family life, it'll be as good as I.
That's what I mean. Everything. It ripples into everything that sport does. I remember one time laying after practice and laying on the mats, and Mike Van Arsdale, he would speak to us a bunch.
Yes,
and,
Mike.
And he was fuck, what a gem that guy is, man. But he was like, he says, we learned a lot of stuff today. We went over a lot of techniques, and we did a lot of variances. But he says, I know a lot of you guys are young guys in there, and you're thinking, there's time. You'll perfect this over time, and you're going to get better. And he goes, and that's for sure a conversation people have. He says, but I need you to consider that there's somebody that's out here in the country, in the world right now, that's going to demand that they get better at that today. That they demand that they're excellent at that today. And like, and that whole thing about like working towards something and then deciding something. Because a lot of times I can feel like I've decided something and be like, put it off and be like, I'll work towards it gradually. And then there's like, you need to decide that you're great right
urgency.
Yeah.
It's with urgency is everything. So some people think like I'm crazy, but when we're in this setting, it's like we're normal, right? That's normal. Right. So if a kid is like, I have a lot of things go through my mind. Being an independent strength coach is so much harder than being a coach at a school where you see the kids and they don't have to pay. You're not worried about who could afford it, who can't afford it, all this stuff. So when you're an independent strength coach, it's like I'll have kids that, especially the past few years, the type of kid that shows up is so far behind the 8 ball compared to 3 to 5 years ago, meaning especially when I opened my first warehouse, but that was 8.5 years ago.
So you've just been on your own too. You haven't opened with anybody else. This has been like your
so we
baby.
Got
You've been like
2 spots. I mean, this started, if I back up, if people don't know the story, like in a nutshell, I start wrestling in high school, very unsuccessful, training like a bodybuilder. This is 89 through 93. You just don't know what you don't know. The kids that were in front of me had wrestled.
And to put it in perspective too for anybody listening, it's like there's no internet. There's no, like right now, if you wanted to learn how to do good chain wrestling, you could go to a whole bunch of websites and you could find out. And all you need is a buddy. Yeah. And you get a buddy and you can go ahead and you can go through drills and there's really good stuff out there.
Meet me here. Let's drill.
Back then, there's none of that.
Nothing.
There's little publications.
If you didn't have a mentor, even like I look at like just the relationship I have with my kids compared to like my parents with me. Like my dad never was like, you got to get tough. Like you got to do this. I wasn't born in this country, and I think like us coming to this country and the way my parents were raised, like that stuff was like you kind of fend for yourself and figure shit out. I remember getting into high school and just getting my ass handed to me my freshman year, and that whole group of kids had wrestled from 3rd grade on, 5th or 6th grade on. They were tough, they were mean, they also had the skills. So I was behind that 8 ball. But today, like the accessibility of all that stuff is what might stop people's urgency from getting it. So, after I got out of wrestling, college wrestling, sophomore year, they cut the college program. So I just kind of got all into coaching. But that's when, the UFC was coming out, right? And I remember my wrestling coach was like, you got to see these guys, Mark Coleman, Mark Kerr, all the former wrestlers. He's like, they're the guys that are dominating, was all the ground and pound. So I started researching that. That's how I found Big Dan's place. Yeah. Training there, get injured, and basically I'm like, well, how am I always injured? I had torn up my shoulder. I already had a knee surgery before that. So I said, I got to figure out what's the way to do this. And I said, who's the best wrestlers in the world? The Russians. So I started researching what Russians were doing.
That's cool.
And started training athletes out of my parents' garage and backyard. And then that segued into the first house I bought with my fiance at the time. We had a 2-car garage. I started training them out of the garage, training them in the backyard. We had like a tree that was cut down So we chopped it in two. I had like a 4 and a 5 foot log, and I was kind of training them with a blend of like what I knew of the Russians and what I saw on Rocky 4. And it was so primitive, but that small handful of kids that I had were just crushing kids. And I remember saying to myself, like, I wish I was them. Then I said, but maybe, you know, is my role on this earth. Maybe I was supposed to go through those hellish times to inspire me to be, you know, a coach, to do this. So that started like training guys out of the house. I was a 4th year or 5th year teacher, so that was like 2002, and spent a couple years training out of the garage until finally a buddy of mine was like, listen, man, like, if you really want to do this, if you want to be taken seriously and you want to, you know, make an impact, you have to get out of your garage. You got to get out. So that's when I found a spot in town, and basically I would go to work during the day as a teacher, and then I would shoot over to the gym 5 minutes away, open up, and this is like early years. You know, that spot's been open 8.5 years, and we started getting parents travel from like an hour away. Today, things are different in the way that like I was listening to an interview with an NFL strength coach, and he's like, man, everybody wants the fads, the gimmicks, the shortcuts, and people get duped so easily where, like, you know, we work so hard, but I always say, like, I don't even need the gym. Like, give me like some dungeon-ass crap hole, and I will build badasses if I could work with them consistent. And that's the toughest thing. You don't always get to work with these kids consistent nowadays for many reasons. There's like a small handful that will just take the lifestyle of being like a straight up gladiator and say, this is how I live, I train, I eat this way, I don't hang out with those guys, I wake up early, I go to bed early, I dial it all in. You know, those are the guys that go to the top. That's who I want to work with.
What's the longest you run with a kid, like a single kid? Like, what's the longest one?
Man, we've got a kid, well, now he's a coach, but he'd still be lifting with us anyway.
Right. But
he started when we opened up. Great story. He started right after his freshman wrestling season. He was 0-15. He weighed 88 pounds. The weight class was 103. His dad shows him the website. He's like, this is this place, and if you want to be, you know, a champion, do you want to do this? We had videos on the website, and the website would say stuff like, you know, if you're not full-blown committed, if your minimum is not to be all state, then don't even bother showing up. And like I would say like the most like things to repel people, to really like.
But it's hard. You have to, because it sucks if you get
One
half a dozen guys come in and
kill a
4
room.
guys come in, they're like, kind of, or whatever. The 2 guys that are super committed, they're kind of like, I guess kind of too, let's just go and fuck off. You know, I mean, it can ruin a spot.
That one like weak-minded or like bad attitude person could crush you. And that's a big reason why I ran my gym part-time and did the online stuff, because I never wanted to have the gym in a way where it was like, oh man, that kid, he's just, every time that kid comes, it's like I'm anticipating and it sucks, but I need that kid to pay my rent. And I never wanted to be painted into a corner in that. I always, you know, I always want to be able to say fuck you.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
then you're free.
Yeah.
Then you're able to work. Really, if you're not able to work, if you're under the
I mean, look at Louis
yoke of
Simmons.
somebody,
He goes, "I'll never charge anybody."
He's a trip,
I
that
can't
guy.
wait to get to that
is a
point
trip.
where I don't have to charge anybody, but there's a whole selection to get in. And now I'm even like toying with the idea, like if you leave for something stupid, you know,
there's a wait list to get back.
Yeah, and I used to have a wait list. I capped it at 40 guys, and we used to have the wait list. Now I got the 2 locations, and now you're dealing with a parent will want to go maybe to the place closer to home and $50 cheaper. I got 2 kids, and all I say to myself is, if at the end of the day I made my decision on what was more convenient and $50 cheaper, then shoot me, fucking end me. You know what I'm saying? End me. And when people are like, I don't have the money, it's always the person who's in a Lincoln Navigator or a Range Rover.
So true.
And I know, like, if let's say I wasn't an entrepreneur and I didn't have this like flexible ways to earn an income. Let's say I was just a straight up understood go get a job. Then I'd fucking not sleep. I'll go stock. I'd be a storage, I'd be stocking shelves at night. I'd get 3 jobs. I would find a way. And you know where that goes all the way back to wrestling, is like you find a way. I remember it snowed and my older brother was wrestling. I was an 8th grader, and he was a sophomore in the high school, and it snowed, and school got canceled, but they got the wrestling room open. We were like 6 miles from the school, but down a highway, down Route 1, and I remember he ran to school in the snow.
6 miles.
Yeah, and that was like the first lesson I learned. I was like, damn, that's fucking crazy. He's going out to run in the snow. But my parents didn't think it was so strange, And my brother was so weird. All people in the family are so different. He was very aggressive. He grew up fighting a lot. He'd get bullied and he'd fight anybody. Where I didn't have that. I just didn't have that in a nutshell. And it took me time to learn to just say, fuck it, I'll fight the devil. And that's why I train our kids so hard, because you could accelerate that, especially if you catch them early. But if you catch them late, or their parents don't agree with that, telling you about the kids that are behind the 8 ball, meaning kid shows up nowadays in 8th, 9th grade, he can't do 1 good bodyweight squat. He can't do a pull-up. Maybe he could do 3 good push-ups. Seriously. That's the kid, you need him in there 5-6 days a week, sleds, sledgehammers, farm boy work. But then the parents, football started, we can't get him there.
That's the hard part about kids.
Dude, you got time. I got kids that go to football, go to wrestling, show up. Or, the football coach is like, you got to lift here. They go there and they show up. There is a way. There's always a way. But when your mom and dad are like, nah, then a young kid...
Somebody offers you an out.
Right. And kids don't know, man. No, what 14, 15-year-old kid's going to be like, yes, get me. It's like 99% will not argue against that, because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah. I think it's such a trip too, when you talk about combatives like that, and you didn't have that in you, and I think when people listen, and what you were talking about earlier too, as far as people wanting to mute that part of what being a man is about, in a way. They want to lessen that, and they want to kind of have it more homogenous, and everybody's just kind of at this percentage rate all across the board. And it's there's no greatness in that, for one, and it's not even a real expression of yourself. It's you're changing people in an unhealthy way, and just because a kid has it, it's kind of it's like a gun control kind of lobby in a way. It's just because you have the ability doesn't mean that you're out there doing it. Just because I have a hammer doesn't mean that I use it to bash heads in. It's you can build house. There's a lot of uses for that, and to have that and give
people
that to a kid and get him to control it.
Yeah.
You're creating a higher level human
Excellence
than somebody that is
people.
just mediocre.
Dude,
that's
the bottom line is excellence
of.
Scares people. It
Makes them feel inadequate. I chose not to, so now I'm less than because you're something. And it's no, man, everybody can win.
People like the comfortable life, and then other people are afraid. If you push for X, there's, when you're in that comfort zone, you could get used to that. Meaning, I think we're all about the same age. I'm 40. Whenever I go to the beach, I'm like, why the fuck these dads always sitting in a chair? Nobody's out. There's some dads out there surfing and being in there, but most dads are out playing with their kids. It's they don't get up. Or same thing with a school. They'll, working with the school so much. It's dude, just let me train these kids. I'll fucking build bad motherfuckers. But there's always an excuse why. Excellence just, it makes everybody else feel uncomfortable because it's a constant work. 3 years and a couple months ago, when Hurricane Sandy hit, I live in that beach town. Town was shut down for 2 weeks. Power was out, a mile inland flooded. But there was adult men, in the middle of the streets, drinking beer, loving it, because they can't go to work. You don't have gas. It was, and I was like, that's lazy. That's weak. There's no way that guy is a wrestler or anybody who came from like combative was out there trying to clean, was out there trying to help.
Who needs help?
Yeah, was out there trying to contribute.
It's the thing too, not just excellence. Is like, how do you fit yourself to be how do you make money? How do you make your way in the world? How do you get along best? You make yourself the most useful amongst the long, broad domain of skills, you'd say. You know,
Yeah.
like the more useful I am, that I can add, I can spell, I can create, I can build, I can push stuff around. Like, you're more useful. And like, if you have all those skills to be useful, like when disaster strikes, motherfuckers want to. You have a drive to be useful. It's like a pit bull wants to
But
work.
they don't,
they
don't teach that. So, being a teacher,
you get flack from the schools then?
Well, I don't teach anymore. I taught for 11 years. Yes,
but
absolutely. My
like
kids
you're
go to
doing this
school.
offshoot thing. Like when you got kids that are coming to your gym
Oh, they
to go
hate
work.
you, bro. They fucking hate you.
Crazy.
But
Like
I
even
can
football coaches and shit must be like, why are you going to him, not me?
Hate on me if I'm hurting everybody and making them slower, weaker, mentally, physically. But see, if I was a coach, let's say I was a football coach, I would find the best strength coach in the area, build relations. I would talk to the wrestling coach.
You know, it takes a team. It takes everybody. Yeah.
I would find ways to leverage everything. But schools, my kids are young, but my son, like, he wants recess over. They gotta go. If they don't go, they're going nuts. I still remember, like, when I took my son to kindergarten and they lined up, like, the kindergarten kids were like online, and there was like 5 minutes before they were going in. The kindergarten kids were online. All the other kids were running. In my mind, I was like, oh, fuck. He's turned into a robot. Fuck. He's turned into a robot. I'm screaming. I'm like, Ethan, run. You could go run and play. So one of the kids, one of the younger sisters of one of the girls that my daughter's friends with, I said, go tell Ethan he could run. She goes up to Ethan. See him talk to him. He throws his book back in the air and just hauls ass and starts running. But that first thing, all I saw was this is the beginning of Robot City. Sit down, do this, do that.
Right.
There's a lot of creativity in kids, and kids, it's again, if their parents didn't come from you coloring outside the lines, then they don't know what they don't know. But me, I didn't get a taste of any success until I stopped being like what everybody else was.
Well, it takes those equal components, I think, of both discipline and creativity. It's those are both sides. If you're just all over here, you're super loose and nothing goes directionally, and they're that's a troubled kid. And if you're super disciplined, it's that's even maybe a worse life. You gotta have both of those, I think, and
They fear that stuff. When I was early years teaching, there was one kid on one of those.
What classes would you?
I had
what grades?
Elementary phys ed, first through fifth. Then my fifth year, I went to the middle school, and I'll tell you stories about that. But then I immediately transferred back to the elementary school because I got so much more work done with the little ones. And I remember my first 2 to 3 years, there was one kid, maybe two, on one of those medications, whatever they gave to a kid. Right? They started coming up with the ADD thing. By it may have been my 6th year, I remember a fucking line of 30 kids deep waiting to go to the nurse, and then the nurse's office would get closed, which it would be to administer medications, whatever it was. It was I swear to you, there was fucking 30 kids on that line.
It's like a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah, so they were, and I remember, what I used to do is I would never eat lunch in the faculty room. It was just all negative. So what I would do is I'd invite some of the kids to eat lunch with me. We'd eat lunch, and then I would take them up to the field for a second. I just let them do whatever they wanted. They'd play wiffle ball, kickball. We'd go to the playground. We had a pretty good playground. Dude, they just unleashed their energy. That's all they needed. Those kids that were being medicated just needed another phys ed class, or they could have used wrestling. They could have.
That's crazy,
that's all
man.
they needed. That's all they needed.
Don't look at your diet. Don't look at exercising harder. Don't change your
Dude, the school
lifestyle.
lunches. I tell the kids that train with me. I go, step 1, you don't buy school lunch. Step 2, you start making your own lunch. And now that I learn this window of opportunity goes so fast, I don't mess around with these high school kids. So when a kid is last week, I'm like, what'd you eat for breakfast? He's like, 5 muffins. I'm like, motherfucker, dude, you don't want to be a champion. That's why you got cut from the basketball team. We give them a nutrition simple packet with like simple outlines. I go,
but you don't
follow
know
that.
though. The parents are here's a
Well, the
muffin for
parent will say
breakfast.
he doesn't like
It's
to
a
do this. He
breakfast
doesn't
power
like to do
muffin.
that, and that's the
Yeah.
problem. We can't just do what we like. If I did only everything I liked, there's times where I don't want to work out. There's times where I don't feel like I need to do the hustle behind growing my gym. But if I don't, then that gym will suck. Like I have to spend easily 3-4 hours of my day on videos and social media trying to educate everybody that's thinking about coming to the underground strength gym, thinking about doing that stuff. Do I feel like doing that? Not really. I prefer to be in the gym or doing something else. But it's not about what you feel like, and that's why I try to turn these kids. It's like, you may not feel like it now, but as soon as you get that little taste of success, you just start. It's a confidence builder. It's like it keeps rising up, and then that kid who maybe, the problem is like his parents don't even believe in him, and now you're battling that, and then you're battling the shit at the school of like the coach who doesn't know what they're doing, saying you got to lift here, and what happens in these schools is just crap.
What you said is right on the money though, and that's what to me athletics did, is like coming from being a poor family in a small town and not having a lot of self-confidence and all that, and like, okay, here's a small taste of success, man. Maybe like you beat that guy in practice, or you didn't get pinned by that guy at practice. It might evolve into you won that match, you won district or something like that.
You build
But
momentum.
That taste
that
of success, man, gives you hope and gives you.
Once a kid wins his first match, or cracks into the varsity lineup, or gets his first, I don't know, pull up, like all that stuff, those little things add up. And that's why, in overseas, like the Russians, Bulgarians, they have their best coaches working with the younger kids, so that by the time they're in their late teens, it's like they're just smooth. Yes.
Built the base.
We talk about, like, in MMA, that's the way I look at everything. Like, it's hard to look at the big success at the end. Like, you never like strive for the big success, whether it's like even on a small microcosm. Like if I'm on my back on the ground, like I don't think of standing up. Like that's too far away. I think about getting my leg in here, getting this half guard, getting my
That's
arm
what the Navy
in
SEALs
position.
say. That's how they get through buds, right?
All these little successes on the way, yeah.
They say, I'm just trying to get to the next meal. And I use that stuff too. Like,
running a business the same way,
running
like
a
getting the
business.
social media out, something.
You're not like, let me
I'm not trying to sign up 20 people. I'm trying to get this video out by 3 o'clock this
That's
afternoon.
right. Let me just build momentum.
What was the first time, like, you guys, when you talk about that, I think, like, the core of what we're talking about, too, is, like, because people are beaten down. People, like, I was talking to the cabbie yesterday, I think, and I was like, hope is in short demand. You know what I mean? Hope is, like, people don't have that, and so they take what, they settle a lot, because they're like, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe, right? And it's like
they're looking at the big picture, like he's saying. They're looking too far down.
Where is
the road.
it? When you guys talk about somebody getting pinned or your first little victory here or there, like where is the first time? And especially working with kids, I guess to you more. But like, where's the first time that you got that confidence where you start thinking like maybe I could achieve too, where you start to look like maybe I could be different than what I'm seeing around me, because what we see around us is some basic shit. And so when's the first time, because you guys are both excellent humans, that you guys started seeing like that? And like and a second question to you is like, how do you then how do you then do that with kids and instill that? What do you look towards?
Man, I can remember like it was yesterday, my one time, so that's why I got to jump on this. I was in middle school sometime, I forget what grade, my first year of real wrestling, and whatever, I'm just kind of surviving, and like this is Oregon, where there's like every weight class had like 6 people in it in middle school, and like my team won the districts every year, that kind of stuff. And there's this one guy that was undefeated since he was a kid and kind of a bully and all that, and we're doing our round robins where, you do the King of the Mountains, King of the Hill takedowns. This guy goes all the way to the end of King of the Hill every time, and somewhere in the middle it's my turn to go against this guy. And I remember I said a prayer to myself going into this guy. I'm like, dear God, whatever happens, I'm gonna give it my best this one time. And then I went in, and I got his leg pinned to the ground. I got his leg pinned to the ground, and the whole wrestling half position was trying to come over the top of my body, and I worked to a double leg, and I kept climbing up, and I kept climbing on it. And by God, I got it. And like everybody in the gym were
Thank you, God.
Yeah. And people were talking about the time that Keith took that dude down and all that. And that was the start of it for me.
It's like that little thing, and it could take.
That's awesome.
It could take time. When I was like in a school like what you have, Keith. Nowadays it's different. Meaning, when I joined wrestling as a freshman, there was a freshman, a JV, and a varsity team. I had to wrestle off to be on the freshman team. I got pinned every match. And now there's not even freshman teams. There's JV, oftentimes not a full JV lineup. Some schools don't even have JV. Why? Because that shit takes time. It takes time to build your way up. So it's like whittling away. Freshman year, I lose every match. The summer before sophomore year, my brother signs. My brother's like, we're going to go to this intensive camp. John Smith was a gold medalist, Oklahoma. He was
lucky that you're around that.
Well, it was the first one. So we go to this intensive camp. I get killed. Killed is like the nice way to put it. The whole room
There's no
was,
beatings like a wrestling
dude, the whole room was, everybody was a state qualifier or a state champ, except for my brother. And then I was the guy that never won a match. I'll never forget John Smith asking each of us, what are you doing here? What's your goal? I said, I've never won a match. He goes, you will now. Sophomore year, I win my first match. And now we're talking about success, right? I never had like this, like, I will die on the mat attitude. It didn't come.
And you're 13, 14?
I was young. Freshman year, I was 13. I went to college. I was 17.
Okay.
So I was young. I think my parents, like, come to this country. I remember being in first grade.
Where'd they come from?
My dad was born in Romania. He moved to Israel, I think, in his early teens. Lived on a kibbutz. My mom was born in Israel. So I was born in Israel. We moved to New York.
What's the kibbutz?
It's basically like a farm and working. You're basically working on the kibbutz in exchange for living there. So there's farming. They've got like fish ponds. I mean, it's
Right.
all kinds of manual labor.
It's like a commune, indentured servant.
It's a commune,
kind of
yeah.
deal.
Some of the guys before they go into the Israeli military will work on the kibbutz, and it builds them. It builds them tough. So I remember being in first grade, and I didn't even know the alphabet. I was telling my parents, I'm like, what motherfucking preschool you sent me to? Like, my daughter, I remember, was like singing the alphabet at like 18 months. I didn't know the alphabet at age 6.
I was the same way, man.
Dude, so, I think like growing up, my parents worked. We woke up.
I just got to picture you as a first grader going, what did you send me to school?
Yeah, I remember just feeling so inadequate would be the word to say it.
A little first grader looking at his parents, you guys fucked up, right?
Yeah, I always tell my parents that. I'm like, where the hell you send me to school? So now you have these parents, they hold their kids back now to give them like that advantage. So I remember sophomore year, I win the first match, then I lose 5 matches in a row. And then I just friggin' got fed up with losing. And I said, I'm fucking winning. I will not lose. And then I won 9 matches in a row. So sophomore year, I went 10-5. But I remember the success of winning became a habit. And I remember by like the 3rd match in a row I won, I started wrestling saying, like, I'm just going to win. I'm not going to lose. Then my juniors and senior year, I didn't have anybody to teach me how to cultivate the mind, how to rebound from setback. So if I lost, I would just dig myself into a downward spiral, worse and worse. Whereas in wrestling and jiu-jitsu and MMA, like you've seen it, somebody gets knocked down, but then you think it's over, but he finds a way to come back and then he wins the fight. You've got to be able to rebound within a millisecond. So like he said, maybe you're down. I've seen it all the time. A 2-time state champ going his first 3rd title. He's winning, and then 10 seconds left, he gets headlocked and pinned. That other guy never just counted himself out, and just he went for it. I didn't have that like belief until I remember freshman year in college. I go back to the high school, and I remember driving to the high school saying, whoever I wrestle today, nobody's going to score a point on me. And I remember just hammering the kid who had won the counties. And that taught me a serious lesson. And John Smith told us to do that. He goes, before every match, he goes, don't just set the goal to win. He goes, set the goal to nobody scores on you, or nobody escapes. You ride them out, or you pin them in the first period. And my brother had that. I didn't. I remember being at a tournament with him, and he saw me lose. And he's like, you fucking watch my match. You don't record this match. Watch my match. And my brother was like long, lanky, just looked like a bean, right? Didn't look strong. And I remember he was just fucking people up because he had technique, but he was pissed off. Like, he didn't care who he was going against. And that took me a lot of time to develop.
And a lot of that kind of anger you're talking about isn't just like wild anger. It's like, that's pride. That's like, I'm not going to be manhandled by this other guy. Like, that's a pride thing. It sounds
and you're
like
just ready to fight. You're like,
brother.
if I go all
right?
out, you have pride, and you're like, and you start realizing that it's actually not that complicated. In the way is, if you go out and just fight with everything you got, then it's all good. And I remember last year being at Lehigh, one of our wrestlers said that he wound up taking second in the country, and he goes, wrestling's not that hard. He goes, I train really hard, and then I just go out there and fight with everything I got. He's like, and I'm having fun doing that. He goes, and if you're willing to fight, he goes, you'll do fine. And that is the difference maker. Are you willing to fight? And just, if you give your all, like, I know it sounds corny, but you can't really lose. So, but, John Wooden at UCLA, they said he would never scream at the players, but he would say, guys, winning is internal. So you may have scored more points, and we may have won on the scoreboard, but you guys didn't play your best, and you didn't win, and you got to decide if that's how you want to go through life. He taught them that, and I think if we could, coaches, I don't know if they don't know how to teach that at this, like, high school level, or they don't want to, or the parents don't want to,
or they don't have it themselves to give.
But I couldn't agree with you more, man.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, like there's always that. I always talk about there's always a fork in the road in any worthy competition where you find you get to this fork, and there's two ways. There's a way out. There's an easy way,
true,
or the good way, which is always a hard way.
It is a hard way.
And you see it in high level competitions where you say, I see that guy I saw just in the UFC a little while ago. That guy took the easy way out. But then there's like the example I always give, like you're getting beat on and whatever, and some guy's punching you, and the fight's almost over. You feel like the ref's about to step in, and like, well, any second now he's going to stop this fight, and I'm going to turn away from the blows, and it's over, or I'm going to turn around and face my attacker, and I'm going to run into a whole lot of punishment, but I'm going to keep on going.
I think you guys are the kind of perfect examples of that, because when I look at when you turned pro and got into UFC, I don't think people were pegging you to be the UFC champ, right? But I think you just refused. You had more fight in you than the other people. And I look back to the first time coming across you, Tait, on The Ultimate Fighter, and Shamrock was your coach, and I remember you were the first guy to stand up and say, well, hey man, I don't think I'm a leg lock guy who wants to stand toe to toe with somebody and go to blows. And that was a learning lesson for me. That was the beginning, actually, that was like my second year of starting to train athletes out of my house. See, I pay attention to little details of people who want to fight, people who succeed maybe when they're pegged not to, people who stand up for themselves. And that's what kids need to learn. If you don't teach them that in their early years and nobody else mentors them, sometimes we have adults train at the gym. It's pretty rare, meaning 30s, 40s. I could tell that they didn't have that mentor, because I feel like this guy might be like 40, 45, but he's just the same as that 15-year-old who was never taught to have some confidence. Let's say I'm training a guy. We had a guy who was going into police academy in his mid-40s. He's like, this is my last chance. I don't know if I'm ready. I'm like, Tom, you're fucking flipping 400-pound tires. You could do almost 10 pull-ups. You could do easily 40 push-ups. You're sprinting. You're benching. You're crushing it. I've seen guys that can't do a pull-up. You're ready. And he went in physically ready, but he didn't have this, and he didn't make it through academy. And it's like, he was with us for maybe 8 weeks, but the whole thing is it takes time. Well, he showed up like he had a background. He was working out like bodybuilder, but we didn't have enough time to build this. So when I'm training athletes, I'm trying to build them when they're not with me. So I'm text messaging them like videos of like Iowa wrestlers or like some old school Pennsylvania wrestlers, or I'm telling them books to read like Lone Survivor, No Easy Day. You know, the town I live in, we moved there because it was like, this is like a safe place compared to where we were. But then I'm there and I'm like, there's nothing to fight for here. And that's why I take my kids to wrestling, and my daughter, when we go to tennis, she goes to Florida, and they're just tough. They just make you work. And I teach them, I tell them, I go, you see how hard that was? I go, but you went through it. I go, it was hard, you were scared, but the whole thing is you don't quit. You never quit. And that's like another percent of success they build, like what you're saying. Just get the leg. Don't even try to get the guy in full guard. Let me just try to pull him into my half guard. You're just these little successes. But if nobody teaches you that, then you're going to be 40, 50.
Well, and then that's the thing is, like, you can get to be 40, 50. I feel like that was some, like, basic ass rules. Like, people are always looking. I mean, I thought that as a little kid. I was like, God, it would be nice to just retire and not have to do anything. And then you're like, there's zero purpose in that. You're like, that's an empty motherfucking existence.
Yeah.
And like, look into that, though. There's a lot of people that are like, in high school, they go through whatever the hard kind of nervous time, going through nerves, I think, and going, what are we going to do with that? Like, I don't know how to process that or whatever. And they're like, I can't wait for it to be over. And they're like, maybe it'll be over when I'm out of high school. Maybe it'll be over. And like, you get to be 40, 50 years old and you're never really busted a grape at all. You never go, oh, well, okay, I'm going to live and it's going to be always hard. Like, and if it's always going to be hard, then cool. That's just how it is, right? It's like, oh, cool, life's a little hard. And then you get to love the struggle. But if you don't love the struggle.
And you know you're going to win, though, because you're like, dude, if it's like, you're just gonna have to kill me.
Right.
That's like the only way you could stop me.
And like what you're saying about your dude, is like there's a certain point when an athlete has to decide, and you can't just
True.
Mail it in or something. You have to decide. And
you're
your guy going to the police academy. He had to decide, like, this is a thing. This is what's going to happen, and I'm going to do this, and it's going to be great. And I've already put the numbers in, but you got to put in enough repetitions for it to be something that you believe in.
Yeah, and there's like so many things like ifs, ands, and buts. Meaning, you guys have probably seen a guy that didn't prepare properly, but he had such a high belief in himself that's
Diego
why
Sanchez.
He succeeded, right? Or vice versa. Or the guy trained perfectly, everything dialed in, nutrition, lifestyle, but he was upstairs, he just didn't believe. And if you don't believe, it will cancel out everything. But if you do believe, it lifts everything, even if the preparation was lackluster.
How many guys in the gym do you see that are like motherfuckers in the gym? They're awesome, and then under the lights, it's like,
you'll see.
You're like, what happened to my guy?
And I tell that story. I go, these guys, they train together for 3 years, showing up, same workouts, going to the wrestling club, doing all that. But this guy, he was so believing in himself, and he wanted it so bad. Whereas the other kid was like, happy to be part of the team, maybe didn't have the outside environment that the other one had, and it just changes them.
A lot of that too, and I like to hear how you would address this, is that positive talk. There's that voice in your head whenever you're in a struggling competition, like the guy that's just kind of like your friend that's kind of like, oh, well, it's going to be a tough fight. We'll make it through, and like somehow we're going to figure this out. Like, well, I hit him with everything I got and nothing happened, but eventually something. And there's that positive voice, or there's that negative voice, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Oh, it's happening again. It's all downhill from here, like panic, struggle. Like, how do you address, because in kids, that's what's really important. Those guys you talk about, those guys like John Jones, where there's nothing but positive going on in their head when they're fighting. That self-belief is so incredible.
It's the regularity. So we got to acknowledge every success. So in the beginning, training with us, even the simplest stuff is crushing them. And then 2 weeks later, I'll be like, dude, remember you couldn't even do 3 push-ups? You just banged out 20 push-ups with a 20-pound chain. I go, do you know that's like, what percent of 3 is 20? I'm like, that's like a 500% increase. I go, do you see where you're at? I go, now we got to get to this next level. There's the tough thing with kids is you're with them, then they're not with you. Then they're with their boys. They're like, yo, don't go to the underground. Just train at the high school. And then the coach, their football coach, will say, we do the same thing Zach does. And you know what I always say? I go, brother, not even on my worst fucking day. And not to be a dick, but the reason why I stand up for them is because I know what it's like. You don't get a second chance to go back and succeed in high school. The majority of these kids will not play football, wrestle, run track in college. So now's the time. And if you're worried about serving your ego so you could, mandatory lifting, listen, man, I have a football in my car. I'm not trying to run football team now, or I got a golf club and now I'm out there teaching people. But, the saying is like everybody's pretending to be a strength coach, but ain't nobody pretending to be a lawyer or a doctor, right?
Right.
But it's like the parents, they get duped, then they tell the kid. So what I'm trying to do is
all that fad shit that you were talking about.
It's all that fad shit. I'm trying to constantly build upon their success. And then I'm also trying to train them when they're not with me, because as you guys know, I always say training is everything you do and everything you don't do. It's the people you hang out with or choose not to. It's the books you read or the books you choose not to read. It's the stupid TV shows you watch versus the good, the stuff that you watch.
Well, if your whole self is a computer, and what are you inputting in that? What are you loading into it? What's your programming like?
And kids, they need somebody to believe in them. They need some sort of like mentor, and they need people that could take them out of their comfort zone and teach them how to battle through that stuff.
I was thinking too, that whole decision making, like when you decide to do it, that you got it. Like I tell jiu-jitsu guys that all the time. Like, everybody wants to get a black belt, but nobody even knows what that means really. And like, I mean, truly in the essence, I mean, there's guys with black belts that don't know what that means. That it's embarrassing. But like the fact is like you get one shot. Like you used to not be able to fight in the worlds as a jiu-jitsu guy if you were a white belt, but now you can. Like in the last bunch of years, but like you get one shot to be a world champion at a white belt level. You get one shot at a blue belt level to be a world champion. You get one shot at and so everybody wants to get a purple belt before they done shit. It's like, what are you about? You haven't done anything. And it's like that deciding to do it, like right as soon as you pick up whatever the chalice is that you're running, man, fucking do that whole thing. Like we talk about it a lot. Like, and it's like whether it's in the little tiny small things. Like you better be 100% committed to that shot or to that lift or whatever. If you're 90% committed, you're not going to get all the juice out of it, and you might not make it.
See, this is the stuff I think kids need to be listening to at school. But
that's what's exciting about you is like when you're talking.
I'm trying to build a school. That's what I'm trying to do.
And I talked to Rob Wolf about that, about building schools, and he's saying you need to build you're not going to change things in the public school system. What you need to do is start out with charter school, and then you think about think about CrossFit, for instance. He says that's like 3,000 different CrossFit gyms in the United States alone. And like, if every one of those started a charter school, well, fuck, that's a revolution, And like, and so I think that is the conversation, and you having a foot in that door of like, I mean, I always thought that the first time I really looked at athletics and all that, I'm like, they don't teach anything about nutrition or movement or anything like that.
It's all old school.
In
all
school,
so outdated.
Or it's it's designed to make you sick and to make you less able, not to make you stronger or more able.
I'll never forget the time I allowed my daughter. She said, I want to buy school lunch. She bought school lunch on a Friday. They had pizza. She came home and threw up. I go, you ain't never buying school lunch again. And when I used to go to school, I was like the only kid bringing lunch, walking down that hallway with the brown paper bag. Everybody else was buying school lunch.
It used to be like you were a bum if you had.
I was embarrassed. I was like trying to hide it. Like you try to like keep it here on your side, like everybody else was. But now I look back and I'm like, I'm so grateful that I never did that. But you're right, like this charter school thing, the tough thing is like people got to pay. People don't always pay for what they need. They just, they're paying for what they want. So when I was going through graduate school, there was had this amazing professor talk, and he gave us a book, required book called Freedom to Learn. And it was about this guy went and did studies of like schools that were in the inner cities about principals and teachers that did stuff outside the curriculum, meaning if you went into the bathroom and you graffitied it, you're going to go and paint the bathroom, and the school, the courtyard is dirty. Let's go get rakes, and now we're going to clean it. After school, we're going to wipe down the desks. We're going to paint the hallways. They built ownership. The teachers were more caring for the kids. They'd give hugs, stuff like that. What do they tell you now? Don't touch the kid. Don't touch a kid. Let me tell you something. when I started teaching, I remember the number of kids that were their parents were going through divorce or they were divorced. School was the best part of their day. It was a time to get
free and
it was
safe.
a time to get they were safe. It was a time to get a hot meal, and they wanted to just get a hug. They didn't get none of that. They didn't get none of that. Today, somebody like me will get fired from public schools. They don't like people like me. They don't like people like us. We push. We're outside the box. You make other people uncomfortable. That's why I never went to the faculty room, because everybody's complaining about this kid. And I wanted to say, like, fucking kid just needs to run. Just send him to me. I used to tell the teachers that. I go, oh, you having a hard time with that kid? Send him down. Send him down for 20 minutes during any of my classes. I'll let him help. I'll let him play. Like,
Such a great idea,
when
man.
my dad grew up in Romania, they had phys ed. It was like 2 hours. He said we'd go outside. It was all outdoors. And there was like all different stations. You would do handball. You were young, you'd be throwing small shot put, small javelin. You ran the track, you jumped hurdles. You did wrestling, soccer, basketball. He goes, and part of the school was the training center. So outside, the wrestlers were wrestling and weightlifting. And the whole thing was pulled on like around age 8. They started like weighing the boys in the boxers and adjusting them, saying like, you're built for swim, you go there, you eat at the other cafeteria. But they did gymnastics, they did all that. And I always wonder why my dad never put me into wrestling. Coming from Romania, he put me into soccer. They didn't know what American football was. They didn't put me into the sports that I felt would have built me. I regret not wrestling, at those younger years, of how much it would have changed me. So schools, I feel like if you're not guided, like, I love my parents, but I woke up, I always tell my kids, I go, you want something to cry about? I go, I'll move out of this fucking town. We will go to the hood and I'll give you something to really cry about. There's nothing to cry about here. I woke up in the morning, there's a bowl of cereal with the warm milk sitting there. And then I came home. My parents didn't get home till 6 o'clock. My mom make dinner. She'd go to bed. My dad come home 6, 7 o'clock. We learn all on our own. If you're not like taught or taken down a path, you don't know what you don't know. That's why
you're leaving
kids,
a 10-year-old to find a path.
Or
to look towards the next strong influence in their life, and if that's a skinhead, or if that's a fucking gang member, or if that's a shitbag, or like whatever, it's like,
and those are the kids that need the combatives.
And it doesn't mean a smart guy, it doesn't mean a good guy, it doesn't mean any of that. It means a strong personality, and there's so many people that have strong, confident personalities that aren't about shit.
It's like your environment shapes you. When I was at the middle school, I remember the principal was saying, this boy needs a father figure. I go, I'm seeing him 3 times a week for 40 minutes. You got 60 kids in the gym. We don't get shit done. That's not father figure. And my first few weeks, I remember my colleagues, the other phys ed teachers, reported me to the department chair. It's like, he's teaching outside the curriculum. So he goes, what are you teaching outside the curriculum? I remember I had a health class. We did a question box. These kids are asking about drugs, sexual questions. He's like, you don't teach that till 8th grade. I go, dude, in 3rd grade, they see their siblings smoking pot. They hear about oral sex. They know all that shit. I go, you're 5 years behind. We're not.
Have you all heard of the internet?
Yeah, we're not helping anything. We're not helping anybody. But they were so scared.
It's a weird thing
change.
about how that people will put away their common sense to go by the manual. You know what I mean? If there's a manual, it's like they'll put away what they know in the real world to go, no, that's not in the manual. Or, that's real trouble.
The best learning is through some sort of experiential. There's something weird about
if Zach is doing this and he's doing extra stuff with the kids, that makes me look like I don't care about the kids. And God damn it, I care because I'm here. And it's like,
they get fired up. I always say, I go, if it's hurting the kids, then I don't want nothing to do with it. Like, the kids are number one. That's what I say. And that's why I train them hard. Because if I train them easy, you learn nothing. You don't walk out of there proud, feeling like you accomplished something. You don't, the whole thing we do is like the relentless pursuit of excellence. So if you're going to school, get straight A's, even if you don't like it. You didn't have time to make breakfast. It don't matter. You find a way to do it. One of our best stories, he wrestles here at NYU, and just a worker, he's just such a worker. So he's a sophomore now, but last year I remember as a freshman, He actually lost his second wrestle off to another kid we train at the Edison gym. So he bumps up a weight class. He's kicking ass. Then their team captain gets hurt. He bumps up 2 weight classes. He's like 18 pounds underweight. He finishes the season with the most wins on the team. When they went to nationals, team nationals, he entered individual nationals. His dad told me he wrestled like 8 matches in a day.
Holy
went like 7-1 on the day. He built himself up. He started in 7th grade training with us. He was a tough kid, came from a tough background, from a town that they just breed those kids in a tough way. But he just kept going to the next level, So when I see a kid that sends me a photo, he's at the other gym, he's like, hey, I just won the holiday tournament and now I'm working out. I'm like, yes, because what would every normal kid say? I just won, let's go to Applebee's.
Right.
Okay, go to Applebee's. But then you just do this little like percent more. And when I see that, I see somebody who's going to crush it beyond wrestling.
That's what I was talking about, like with a couple fighters before, a couple years ago, and I was like, you go and you get a fight and you got those nerves, and then you go through the training and you dial in your diet, and that's part of it, dialing your weight in and getting all that and getting ready to go and compete, and then you go ahead and you have your competition, whatever happens, and then you get a little depressed afterwards, and then you go, okay, I'm going to have a couple of pizzas, and, if you drink, you go and you drink, and you go and you put on another 20 pounds or something on top of whatever the weight was on the day that you fought, and then you get a call again, maybe in a month or maybe a couple months, and then you go through the process again. Well, you remain fucking basic as fuck through that whole thing. You don't ever get better. You're just getting to status quo again.
You're doing that roller coaster.
And I was like, imagine if you never did the pizza, the depression. Imagine if you did some kind of like spiritual or conscious mental work right after, renegotiated your life in a different way, got a different activity, but you stayed there. You never had to worry about making weight again because you're never getting in shape because you're never out of shape. Yeah. And that's where champions keep getting better and better and better.
But it's who's around them. It's like, what do they see, right?
Well, that's where guys like you come in, because that's where, like I was going to say before, like Tait and I, we know how to work hard. I always say every night I'll go to bed man, I know how to work hard. I'm going to give everything I had every day, and I'm just going to train harder every day. And whatever, harder is not better. What is the actual right way? And I pray someone come down and tell me what to do to make myself a better athlete.
You could train very hard.
Yeah.
And that may not, what's hard? We got to train smart, but we have to dial it in also with the mental side.
Yeah.
That, to me, I've just found that's the biggest thing. If you get somebody to buy in and they believe in that, I learned the personality of the person I'm working with. Some athletes thrive on that very intense, even if it's not scientifically appropriate, but you start cutting them back, deloading them, they start second guessing their preparation, that kills everything. Yeah. So you might need to kind of do a 60-40, 40% science, and then because that person loves the work. Like Dan Gable trained 8 hours a day. Right. If he trained 4 hours a day, he wouldn't have been as confident, wouldn't be so good. Then you got the other athlete who loves to feel good. So you deload him going up to the fight or to the big tournament or to the end of the season.
You know what athletes' minds are like.
You got to learn what they're like.
But what do you think? There comes a certain point where if I'm a coach and I've got 6 guys, and I'm like, man, I can give everything to 6 guys, and I can really know who they are, and I can have interactions with them outside of the gym and all that kind of stuff. At what point, is it 20 guys? Is it 40 guys? At what point do you start to not be useful, and you go, nah, the tipping, how there's an idea, and I forget what it is, but they say, a tribe or a community could be 150 people, and when it gets bigger than that, it breaks apart into different groups, right?
Yeah.
And so, but as a coach, it seems smaller than that. What's the most guys that you can train and you can really be vital towards?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because my 2 gyms are built pretty much the same, minus the one gym has a long stretch of turf. And because it's longer and bigger, at first I found the intensity was less because you weren't rubbing shoulders with that guy, right? People could kind of hide in the back or be a little bit behind that dumbbell rack. You'd be like, damn, did that kid just half rep those pull-ups? So whereas that other gym, the first one, it's 1,000 workable square feet. There's no hiding. You want to do your sleds, open the garage, put it on the street. Yes, it's 20 degrees. We're doing it. Yeah. And I found
be grateful the ground's frozen. It'll slide easy.
Right. I found that smaller gym, the smaller numbers could handle. So when it's too big of a place, so when some of these like high-end performance facilities open up, they're milling a lot of kids in, the intensity's not there because you're not banging into people.
Right.
It became too perfect. So I prefer a little bit of imperfection with everything. So what's the number? It depends on the size of the place. I found that, you know, if it's just me coaching, a 10 to 12 group is awesome. I got 2 squat racks. We're going to do couplets. We're going to sneak in some small things in between. Legit. Sometimes when it's too small, the energy's not there. They got nobody to compete against.
Right.
And if it's a small group, I'll train with them and push them. In the back of my mind, I'm like, damn, I'm fucking old. It's hard to keep up with these 16-year-olds. They got they got a motor that doesn't stop. You know, you forget what it's like to feel so unbreakable at that age.
Yeah. I watch little kids playing. I'm like, they don't even sweat. Like, at what age did I start sweating? You don't even remember. I'm like, if you get an 8-year-old, they play all day. It's like they don't even sweat.
Yeah. So these younger athletes, when a parent is like, is it going to be too much if he goes to the high school weight room and comes here? You know, not all high school coaches are bad, but the majority are just not on any good level at all.
And they're under-supported, too.
Right,
I mean,
they're not educated.
Sure.
Maybe they don't want to educate themselves. The people up, you know, the administration doesn't educate them, whatever. They're just behind the times. So a kid will maybe touch the barbell once every 10 minutes, right? But when that's why I know,
especially if they're highly skilled. If you got a highly skilled guy and you're in a high school, like that guy, they're like, oh, if he doesn't want to lift weights, they're not pushed to because they're already good, and so they're like, the coach is like grateful, like, oh, he's a good guy, like they don't want to like, piss him off
until he
him
bangs into somebody who's got the
really
work ethic,
yeah,
who's like, you know what, he's like, you know what, and I started seeing that. I learned that lesson when I was a sophomore in high school, and there was a kid who had taken, I don't know what he took freshman year, but sophomore, junior was a state champ. His parents had him going to China. He was competing in like junior worlds. He was just demolishing people. Senior year in the region finals, he meets up with a kid who puts him to his back and beats him. That kid's main sport was football. But I remember they were interviewing him at the state tournament. It was at Princeton University. And he goes, there ain't no pressure on me. All the pressure's on him. He's like, I'm ready to do what I got to do. And that kid, I remember he broke all the state records for most wins and all that stuff. But then some kid who plays football, who was a great athlete but strong and tough, and was like, I will fight the devil. Like, he didn't care who was in the corner. And then he won the states, and he went on, I don't know where he played college football, but he played in the NFL, I think, for the Bills a little bit. But it was like, I saw that. And then what's interesting is that kid, his younger brother won the states the next year, same way, beating a guy going for his 3rd state title. You win a state title, in Jersey it's brutal. You win a state title like you're a bad son of a bitch. These kids were going on their 3rd. His brother is losing, throws a headlock, puts him to his back and wins like whatever it is, by a point or 2. Beating a guy going for it. And we've had our own kids do that. One of my kids last year lost going for his 3rd state title. Didn't put in the time, too much off and on training. You know, I'm a believer in there's no, you just gotta, like you gotta be consistent. Your environment is the ticket.
You train girls the same way as you train boys?
We don't have too many girls.
Right.
The difference I have with the girls that come in is I talk to them differently. You know, there's just not that intensity factor. They don't respond to that way.
Where do you learn how to do that?
Probably being a teacher.
Yeah.
Learning to work with, like, this kid, you could speak to him and be a little bit more harsh with him. This one's very sensitive, and you have to kind of whisper to him over there, and just you're learning, like, to have these, you're having, like, multiple personalities while you're every single hour. You know, each group is different, even at the college level. So it was like all these different personalities, but teaching taught me a lot about managing groups and the energy level. And, you know, I always tell coaches, I go, if you don't know how to do nothing, just genuinely care, because that's the basis for everything. If you care, that's the foundation of the pyramid. When you care, you're going to start if I care about the kids, I'm going to start researching ways to train them. I'm going to find somebody to come in and help me. I'm going to go and help myself to help these kids.
Yeah, if you're caring and enthusiastic, it goes a long, long ways.
Caring is the ticket. Like, if you don't care about your coffee, if you don't really care about it, then everything's going to be
And
packaged
how
wrong.
can anybody else?
Exactly.
Also, there's no details
it all
to it.
starts with caring. So even when a strength coach asked me like, "What's your like best marketing tactic?" Marketing. I go, I care. I go, and when you care like with your heart, like 110%, you start finding ways to spread your message because you believe.
And also,
in
I
it.
feel like it's like this too. It's like I'm not selling shit. That is how I feel about it too. Is like a lot of like what I'm sharing. I'm out here going, here's some rad shit, man. Here's a better way, and if you're into that, fucking, it's available. It's right here. And you know, and I'm not trying to push some shit out. Like I'm just going. Also, this, you know, and I think that's a huge thing.
When you look at, I spoke at a conference in September, and I was telling them about this first business course I bought, and I was like, every time he said, do this, I would pause the CD and whatever, buy the website or do this or get the logo. This is a long time ago. And I said, that product changed my life because it taught me how to go out and change other people's lives.
Was that Matt Fury?
It wasn't Matt Fury. It was, it was not Matt Fury.
Nobody will know that name.
Right. Maybe some of the older listeners will know. So I told everybody, I go, so whatever you do, I go, the whole foundation has to be, are you changing somebody's life? Because if you're not doing it right. You're not doing it good enough.
And what's it for?
You have to. What is it? What is it
What's it
for?
for?
What is it for? Like, I remember a buddy of mine said that he owns a real successful gym out in, I think, Orange County, and they do a lot of business coaching. But when he first started mentoring me, he had stage 4 leukemia, and he goes, at the time, like, I had the big, like, H2. It was when the H2 came out, all this. He's like, the money this, the money that. He's like, then when I got sick, it taught me, like, what do you need? Like, how much money do you need? And what are you doing these things that you're doing them for? And, you always come back to mentors. My first, like, business mentor said, he's like, man, I think, I'm not a religious guy. I'm more a spiritual guy. But he's like, I think God put you on this earth to make people strong. And when he said that, I felt like he gave me a direction and a permission to do this, to just go for it. And when I started, look, man, people were like, that guy's he's a fucking idiot. He's an idiot. He's training people with tree logs. They're pushing trucks across parking
He
lot.
doesn't even have money for equipment or whatever.
He's an idiot. But all I was caring about was watching the basketball player I trained be the team captain and slam dunking, or the wrestler who was losing 2 weeks ago, and then he's major decisioning a kid because he believes, and seeing what that does for the whole family, because you guys know your family's watching, the people closest to you that you consider family
changes.
They hurt when you hurt, and it's like amazing when I attach to that. And plus I live, like, a big part of the way I live is really about the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. My regrets of not achieving success and not knowing what to do, they just keep inspiring me. And trust me, through the years, I feel like the cards are more and more stacked against independent strength coaches like myself, because there's more people out there pretending to be coaches.
Sure.
There's fads out there. There's
I
the
feel
sport
like
coaches don't want your help.
What you're saying though too is like about your regret or whatever. It always rings in my head. In these conversations of, one of Mask's favorite quotes, and he goes, I may not touch 1 million people, but I might touch a guy that touches 1 million people. When asked, why do you keep trying? Like, what pushes you out there? And I think, like, that thing too, and you're like, the guy's like, I believe in you. I think you're here to get people strong. Well, fuck. Like, the question that right away in my head is like, what's strong? Let's define strong. Because
a lot more than lifting weights,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
It's way more.
Is like, what does that really look like? And don't we need a whole nation, a whole world of strong people that are empowered? And like that's the real deal, because that starts in those little things.
Because everybody's going to go through a tough time in life, whatever it is. Your business, your family, your relationships, you name it. There's going to be a time where you're like, man, I don't know if I'm going to make it. And I remember when Hurricane Sandy hit, I had one gym. When Hurricane Sandy hit, the power was out for 2 weeks, and I was like, damn, dude, not all, but so many, way more than half of our members had to stop. They had a second home down the shore. They went and
Or
fixed
family
that
to
house.
help or whatever,
Family. They lost a job. I remember refunding everybody's membership, the half of their membership that month. And I was like, whew, I just saw like that went. And then like a weird like little economic depression hit New Jersey where people didn't want to like go and do that stuff. And the stuff that was going on during the power outage, I remember I was like, treat this shit like you're going through the wrestling season. Like, keep fighting, keep showing up, take one step at a time, and just keep plugging forward, keep moving forward. And believing in yourself is, if you don't, like you're talking about Mask, when Tap Out magazine, before it was Tap Out, it was called Bodyguard. It's called Bodyguard. And you guys know, the owner's no longer with us, but I remember seeing when that magazine came out, seeing all the big names, and I remember calling the owner. He had in the back of the magazine left his office number. I called him like 30 days in a row. I remember Monday through Friday, and it was like 28 days in till he just remembered my first name. And I told him, I was like, listen, I know that you've got the big names writing for you, and that's how you're paying for your advertising space. But I go, I will crush what they're talking about. I go, give me a chance to write an article for you. I go, you don't got to pay me, but give me the opportunity. And in my younger years, I would never step up and say,
Right.
give me the ball. Let me take the last shot. Like, I wasn't that guy. But through those little success steps, the fighting, I just started building that belief, saying, man, I know what I'm doing is working. I gotta share this. And then learning.
And you see, there's no time. There's just right now. Like, I gotta
now,
fucking go now. I gotta
is
go
the
now.
ticket. When somebody's like, I'll start after the season, I'll start Monday, it's too late. Because just time goes fast. Like, I look at my kids, I like see the picture on the wall. I'm like, man, that's 4 months. Now he's 7. My daughter's 9. You're like, where did this go? I'm 40. Yesterday, I remember being, 21. It just goes. It's just scary too, man.
What do you see right now? Like, if you were, I think definitions are important. Everybody's got an idea of success and what that is, and like, what do you look at that as? Like, what do you define that as in your life of, like, when you're like, either, like, I've had success in this moment, or this is success on a bigger picture generally over a life. Like, what do you think of that as?
Yeah, every day I think about, can I look myself in the mirror and say I gave my honest best effort on all fronts? My work, my family life, the coaching, did I give my best? If I didn't, I don't like that. And there's certainly times where I'm not, we ain't perfect. So it's not always the best. So I look at that first and foremost. Can I tell my kids, these are the things I did today, and can they be proud of me? That's the big measuring stick for me. On the future, what would I love to do is be so successful with the online stuff where I could get these kind of underground strength gyms in inner cities
And
for
where can
free.
people find your online stuff if they want to peep that right
They
now?
could just like Google underground strength or Google Zach Even-Esh. It'll pop up everywhere, from the YouTube and the Instagram to the blog.
Great.
But I live near, New Jersey. It's probably like this everywhere. Like, 15 minutes one way is the farm, 15 minutes the other way is, the $1 million homes, 15 minutes the other way is the hood, right? It's like that everywhere. Coming from coaching, remember when I coached at the middle school, I had these 2 kids. One got removed from his home, from school. Then his brother got kicked out of school. And I'm like, man, those kids were awesome. Like, they were fighters. But where are they going? They sent one kid to like a halfway out. I don't even know where they sent the kids to. I want my gym to be in the city where that's your place. When I was in high school, parents would just drop me off at the gym. And then I'd do my homework at the, juice bar. I'd be there like just forever. 4 hours, 5 hours, that was like my place. I want a place where these kids, these inner cities, I go through the sometimes these inner cities just to remind myself, what happens when you just succumb. But then I also remind myself, I see, places where people are living on food stamps but driving a Lexus. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I feel like I don't want to be trying to play God or something like that, but I want to be in there impacting these younger kids, because if you could catch them when they're young, I want to get a gym that's maybe got a wrestling map. Then now you got to get coaches doing all that stuff, and people don't want to do shit for free. They don't want to do stuff for free. To this day, a lot of my training stuff, when I'm going out traveling to these schools, I do it for free.
Yeah.
And
Tell me what you make an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Your hourly wage is $4.
I could train like,
It's
there could be like 60, 70 kids there, and maybe 1 or 2 of those kids will sign up because their parents, get it. Or they're, what's this cost? I always tell people.
Then there's the double-edged sword too.
Yeah.
If it is free,
they don't
value it anyway.
They don't,
Yeah.
and that's the toughest part.
Because I've tried that too. I've tried to give it away, and I'm like, oh, this is broken. You're giving it away, and you're good.
You said you wanted to give me coffee. I said, dude, don't give me anything. You're like, it's all right. I said, dude, you can't give it to me.
I didn't know what spoiling somebody was. You know what I mean? And like, I
don't know where you learn it though. I don't know where you.
I didn't do it until I fell down.
Stuff
and
I
was
down.
like, fucking. And then I was like, oh, you've actually ruined a good person by giving them too much. You've gotta respect people's struggle. You can't. Like I found a dude told me that in the best way. He goes, you're robbing somebody of their experience, Tait. You had the experience that made you you. Why would you try to steal this guy's experience?
It's an abundance mentality. And you know what's weird is like, you guys are very tough, obviously very tough guys, but sometimes we're like, maybe we don't want somebody to go through what we went through. But then you're like, damn, but that's the way I am because I went through those tough times. Sometimes I even see it with like, in wrestling, you see these like crazy parents in all sports. Some of them are too far. You got to be tough, but you got to give them the opportunity. You got to push them a little bit when they're a little uncomfortable, but not beyond like these crazy times. So little things like my wife even keeps me in check with that. I remember like my daughter was like really tired. I was like, I don't think she's gonna go to tennis today. She's like, yeah, she is gonna go, because you're gonna build a habit of any time she says she's tired or uncomfortable, you're gonna give her the out. You will actually hurt her by doing that. I said, you're absolutely right.
You got to look into the future. You got to see the future.
Yeah. So it's okay. And what's so interesting is a buddy of mine, he was a state champ. His son doesn't wrestle. And he's like, it's too crazy. It's too crazy now. I'm like, dude, how the fuck did you win a state title? Why did you get tough? Why do you own a restaurant? Because of your wrestling. Because of how tough you were pushed and your brothers. And, I tell him, I go, don't forget where you came from, brother. Like, you. Sometimes we come from a place, we're trying to escape it, and then we're like, maybe that's where I need to go to get back.
It's like Rocky. He's got to go back. He's got to go back.
Dude, and my buddy always says, he goes, we talk about wrestling so much, but I have a close friend that coaches wrestling. He was a state champ. He was an All-American junior college in D3. And he goes, Rocky is not even real. It's not even real. I go, yeah, it was not even real. But I go, what Mickey says is real. He goes, worst thing that happened to you, Rock, is you got civilized. And that's why when I started training kids, I remember watching Rocky 3. I was penciling like the Tough Gym sign. I was like envisioning like I'm gonna open a gym. I'm gonna call it Tough Gym, and going back to where you came from when Apollo takes him back right to Tough Gym. You if it's too nice, it's no good. When I was at Lehigh, they had a brand new multi-million-dollar building, wrestling weight room. Beautiful. And I was like, first thing we're doing is not training in the gym. Took him to the mountains and we did brawling drills. Brawling. I mean, it was like, semi fist fight out there.
Yep.
And it was the make or break time. It was the beginning of what we had to do to build ourselves up. And when it was cold, didn't have sleds. So I went to the tire yard. I rigged the tires up to make sleds. I went to my buddy's restaurant. I got the empty kegs, had the guy next door who was a welder, filled them up with water and sand. And I remember right after Hurricane Sandy, like the sand dunes were built from the water and the wind, like scooping sand into those things. The fucking houses were run down, and I'm like, I'm out here like trying to build people, and these houses are run down, and how life is not that hard. I remember saying to myself, like, these houses just got destroyed, and I'm out here just like filling shit up, and I still got my house and all that stuff. So I try to like use those, looking at like what other people have. Some people, they make their own bed, but I was like, man, if you just keep working for this stuff, the hard way.
Just
like you
keep
guys said,
working for it, man. That's what you learn.
The beauty is in the work.
How to earn it. Like,
earn it.
And there's always going to be that point where you're about to step on the mat, or you're about to step in that conference room, or whatever, and it's like, in your heart, did you earn it or did you not earn it? And if you can come with the confidence that I did, I was in the blizzard running up hills doing that thing. I earned it.
Yes.
Everybody has that Rocky montage, like when they're training, like Jody and I talk about all the time. Like I'm in the blizzard running up hills doing whatever. Like I'm earning it. I'm doing that thing. I'm tougher now.
You guys trained. Did you guys train out of Jackson's camp? Is that right?
Yeah.
So isn't that very much in like pretty much like nothing area? You're in the mountains.
So the mountains are real nearby, and we're high elevation, and all that, and it's beautiful up there for that reason. It's just that culture of Mike Winklejohn, Greg Johnson, but Mike Winklejohn's the one that really brought that in. A lot of the Holly Holm runs like amazing amount every day on those mountains. She can run across the whole Sandias, and she'll do that at one point before every fight. I remember you talking about the competition being up there. Mike would have. I remember, I got so many stories about whatever, but just touch what we were talking about. Like, I was up there with Dwayne Lugwood one time.
Yep.
Dwayne's an amazing endurance athlete, just like phenomenal. So Mike Wink got me out there with Dwayne running hills one time, and everything's like horrible, and I got to keep up with him. Like, this is my hometown and all that stuff, and so we're all the way done. We sprinted these sand hills a bunch of times, whatever. I'm keeping up okay, and then Wink sees it that we're kind of side to side and all that, so they ain't done yet. So we're gonna go do this added thing to it. We're gonna go run up this high. We're gonna do front kicks up this mountain, side kicks up this mountain, hitting pads, and then Dwayne just takes off and he kills it, and Wink gives me a little. You gonna let him do that?
If you have the right people around you, they just elevate
to
you.
even make it better. He's like, okay, we'll do this last thing. It's optional. You can do it if you want to do it.
You know
or
what that
whatever.
means, right?
Yeah.
Optional is like if you quit, like it will ruin everything.
Yeah.
That I always say that at the end of the workout.
That's like, I won't be here tomorrow. It's
call it
optional,
extra,
but I'll never show up for you again.
We say extra credit. Who wants to do extra credit? So that kid Ray, who's wrestles here in NYU, like he would always do extra, and then you'd see like off to the side of the gym, he's got like. He always holds a stopwatch. We always know when he's there. He's got the stopwatch. And you see like other kids like trying to sneak out so he doesn't say, yo, Keith, just 10 minutes. Everyone's like, I gotta go. And he's like, where you gotta go? Just 10 minutes like that. And he's right, just 10 minutes. It changes you. But then sometimes you gotta, talking about the signs, you gotta reel them in. Like I spoke with him recently, and his coach was saying, we practice an hour and a half, but then he stays another hour and a half, and then the strength coach has workouts, but then he does his own workout. And I said, dude, like hone that in and unleash that energy on the mat. Yeah. I go, you want to feel like you got a little bit in the tank because your performance right now is a little bit slipping. And I go, that's the discipline. I go, in your mind, you want this. But I go, your body doesn't need that right now.
Maybe you're not given everything you got for that other stuff that you have the stuff.
That's right. You could be coasting a little bit because you're thinking about the next session.
I see that even now when I go into training is kind of like that choice. Like I train all the time still, and say you just did a bunch of rounds and you call somebody out, hey, give me another round, and they're like, whatever, I'm kind of done, whatever. That you see that people, but goddamn, I don't have that in me. Like I'll be goddamn tired where I'm burning. Hey, Keith, give me one more round. It's like I just got called out. Like I want to leave.
I think we were kind of like wherever our conversation was going earlier. I remember thinking that's like a big fear I have, is that I know how horrible it feels to not be tough, that I fear losing it. So even when things maybe
fear and stress are good things.
Yeah, I'm like afraid. Like that movie Act of Valor, when he says, he was talking about that Tecumseh poem. He wrote the letter to his son. He was saying the worst thing about getting old is other men stop seeing you as dangerous. And years ago, I remember noticing that like we were having a lot of success at the high school level, but then these kids didn't want to compete in college, and then like they'd come back like a year later, like 30 pounds heavier. Like you don't even recognize them, fat. Like they just lost their edge. And that's why I teach the athletes. I go, guys, I'm 40. I go, but I'm telling you now, I go, whether you're football, baseball, wrestling, I go, the training, it never ends. I go, do you understand it? You never stop. So I remember I had a shoulder scope a month ago, but a little bit before that, these 2 football players were in, and they're like, yeah, squat competition. They're like, you in, Coach Zach? I was like, hells yeah, motherfuckers. I'm like, I will double your squat. I was like, you just fired me up. And I remember that day, I just felt run down. I think the worst thing is just sitting behind a computer a lot. It just crushes you. And I was like, yeah, let's go, motherfuckers. And just going fired up. You can't say no. And then that day, I remember I was like, I should have worked out. Now I'm not going to work out. Then they called me out. And then the rest of my night, and just like I was able to go to sleep that night, like knowing that day was not wasted. Like I left it all. I left it all out there for the world.
It ain't because you hid from comfort.
Yeah.
It's like you go into the hard thing, and
chase
then,
it.
and so then, like, we've been talking a lot about like what's happiness and what's success and all that kind of stuff, and it's like everybody thinks that being comfortable or something or feeling safe is like success, and it's like that's the opposite, man. That's where
Yeah,
you got to be able to live with yourself when you go to bed, right? Like
That's the ticket.
if you turned away from that one challenge, that one thing.
My buddy Joe DeSena owns the Spartan Race, and now he's in Singapore and in Asia. They're building Spartan Race there. But he lives in Vermont. The backyard is the mountain, and he's just always working. And we created the Spartan Intensive Wrestling Camp, did the first one last spring, right after. It was sick. Like, we're training in the mountains. We were doing all the hill sprints. We had the coach from Cornell there. It was so tough. They were carrying huge tree logs. And Joe was walking from his house. He owns kind of everything in the town. He bought like all the property, no traffic light, real small town. And he's got like a 60-pound that pancake sandbag on him. And he's like, I'm always on this airplane. I'm sitting in front of a computer. He's like, I'm turning into a fat piece of shit. And he's not fat at all. He'll do like 300 burpees. After every 50, he'll climb the rope. Like,
right.
But he was walking around doing business meetings on his cell phone with the sandbag on his back. He didn't want to drive, like everything. He was walking. So he's on the phone, and you see him like up and down the hill. And that's him. Like, he fears comfort. He used to live in the city. He grew up in, upstate New York, went to Cornell, comes to the city, he does some like Wall Street stuff, and he's like, what the hell's going on here? He's like, after work every day, go to the bar, eat your fancy food, come home, nice lifestyle.
Right.
He's like, it freaked me the hell out. He's like, so I just signed up for the hardest thing I could do, and he signed up for like one of those crazy ass races. He did the Iditarod. Like, he's like, now I just chase the challenge. He's like, when I feel crappy, he goes, I push harder. And that's what he does. He just pushes himself, and that's what makes him feel happy. And he sees the way of the world, and that's what he...
It's like earning life.
Yeah, that's what he says.
In a way,
Yeah.
It's like, I remember I won a competition sometime, and it was like the weights were different or something, and I didn't cut weight, I didn't do anything, and I'd been sick, so I didn't really train for it. And I went and I won, and I felt horrible
because you didn't work,
and I didn't fucking work for it at all. And I was like, and I feel like that you got to suffer for stuff, and because otherwise, they're like, what are you doing? And that really owning it, earning it is like a huge aspect.
And some people are gonna win without doing all the work.
Yeah,
but that's rare.
Well, and that's the idea too. When I ask you, like, what do you define success as? Because it's not winning necessarily in that way. You know what I mean? It's not always
the internal
what that
winning.
Is. It's not what it looks like.
Yeah, my hand doesn't always get raised. The one thing that just runs through my mind is that I feel like I can't be defeated. I can't be beaten. And probably it's because I've been beaten so many times. Like, I just believe that if I keep charging, you cannot stop me. So, like, living in the town I live in now, we've got like 80-something athletes in the gym. The town is 2 square miles. The high school is I don't even think it's a mile away. We have like 3 kids from that high school, and we've done fundraisers for their coach with cancer. No, none of their team shows up. We've done fundraisers. You spoke with Andy Stump, helped them do the Navy SEAL Foundation. None of those guys show up. I just people have told me, they're like, dude, just shut that gym down. Like, nobody from that town's coming. And I'm like, I'm not stopping until I change the way this town thinks until I build a wrestling team in this town. The wrestling team's horrific. They go like 2-21. They just get killed. And I'm like, I will not stop until I make it happen. It's crazy because what would other people view me as? They see all the stuff online. They're probably thinking, Zach, why don't you franchise your gym? Like, because I'm not interested in that. I'm interested more in who's in my backyard. I'm interested in the ground floor.
Yeah, to
the
make the
kids.
community good.
That's what it is. The community. I want these kids to be tough, not to be afraid to leave this little ass beach town.
What would you say, like, to you at 20 years old right now with where you've been, or like what advice would you give, or how would you have done it different if you would,
Believe. I did the work, but I didn't believe. And maybe that takes time. It takes more work until you really believe. Believe and chase the challenge. And whatever you do, fight. Whatever sport it is, like, do not finish your tennis match, your soccer game, your football game, like feeling like you didn't really, like, just fucking leave it all out. And that's something I didn't do. I still remember losing a really close match. I remember senior year, my knee blew up, took 2 weeks off, and I would swim instead of run, swimming. And I had a day of practice, and the next day we had a match with a crosstown rival. And I remember being tied and, like, in on his leg and him spinning behind with like 10-15 seconds. And I remember being sad, like, okay with giving him a fight. He was a very tough guy. And I'll regret that for the rest of my life. And that's age. I had just turned 17. That's 23 years ago, and I remember that shit. And I regret not holding the leg or just fighting harder because I didn't learn. I didn't understand how to really fight. At that point, in the beginning, it's like I'm surviving. Then it's like good enough. Then I started getting to a point of, like, bring it the motherfucker on. I don't care who, what.
It's that point when you turn as a man, I think, and you go, no, good enough sucks.
Good enough
is hard.
Good enough is it's like the evil brother of greatness. Good enough is the devil. Everybody, we said it from the beginning, like, where's
that old punk rock axiom, satisfaction's the death of desire.
Yeah, where is the, like, people fear excellence. I'm telling you, they do, because it requires to always go. But good enough doesn't require anything. You could just keep coming back. You're a clock. That's what's called being a clock puncher.
Everybody in your goddamn life will be like, no, you're right. That's fine. Everybody understands.
Oh, it's okay. Like, people are afraid to be like, dude, this
That's
shit
what I like
good.
about, like, Mike Winkeljohn too, is because he'd be like, I guess he could stop there. Or, like, you know what I mean? And you're just like, oh.
I remember saying that at a wrestling club. A couple parents, their coach told me, he's like, they finished practice. I said, anybody who's good enough could leave. Anybody who wants to win, stay after. And the coach is like, oh, man, some of those parents were like, who the fuck he thinks he is? I'm like, I'm telling you the truth. Because if I don't tell you the truth, then I ain't going home. I didn't do my job.
I'm the guy that's lived it, that's been unsatisfied because I did it the other way one time.
And listen, I see those things like, okay, you left, and then you took second in the state. But I'm telling you, everything you did or didn't do added up to that moment. You know, like that. I'm telling you, that movie Terry. It's like you get what you earn. I look at, like, if I'm training a kid, and then his parents pull him out when the season starts, and then I don't get to train him for 3 months, and I see him, like, take second in state instead of first. I'm like, if his legs were stronger, I know he would have finished that. I know he would have had the confidence, or he wouldn't have stepped out there maybe saying, did I do everything I needed to do for this moment? And I taught that when I was at Lehigh. I taught that to those guys, and that was a trip. That was 105 miles each way, and I lost a lot of money commuting there, the little money I got paid, the lack of time I had to do work. And when people say, why you do that, I say, I want to teach my kids that you don't take a job or do something just because of the money. I took a lot of pride in being part of that team and building those guys to what they achieved that year. And I wanted to teach my kids that everything was great. Like, my 2 gyms were pumping. My online business was great. But do you stop because everything's great? I needed to be uncomfortable, and I wanted to teach them that it takes work. So those 2 days, they didn't see me. I left the house at 5:45. I was up at 4:45, left at 5:45, home at 9:15. Those were brutal days, and it even crushed my health. But I wanted my kids to learn that, what we keep saying is like, you want to succeed, then you do the hard shit. You don't look at the money all the time. I'm not going to say money's not important. That's obviously critical. It's very important, but you'll earn that too.
That's what's cool about like who you are, though, because like people listen to this like, well, like you just train like a maniac and you're going to be good at something, but that's not it. Like you got to find like what you are. You got to find the mentors. You got to find somebody that's done it before that can show you the path, because just working hard, like that's not always necessarily enough. You got to find somebody. You got to, whatever you do in business, like you got to find somebody that's done it.
The mindset.
Exactly.
When you blend those two together, you are a powerful machine.
Yeah.
The two. Yeah.
You just got to find that thing.
And I think that thing too, having the people around you that you trust in that way, because that thing about like, so you get that person that is a hard worker, that's kind of rare, that is like that kind of driven. Well, that works himself into nothing. Like you can grind that guy down to a zero, like because he is doing the extra and he's doing this.
Pull the reins a little. You got to hold the reins a little bit.
Then you need somebody to teach you like, hey, you need to relax. You need to come back. The growth is going to happen when you rest, and here's how we're going to recover, and like what that all looks like, because like you can get steel on steel real quick when
that's how the turn of MMA began to change. Guys like Mark Kerr, Mark Coleman, Kevin Randleman, they just beat the crap out of each other. They trained like bodybuilders. They took they didn't want to listen to a little bit of science, or I always
think about that about like Mark Coleman. Imagine if he got good on his back a little bit.
Right.
Like
they didn't want to. They would just go to the Ohio State wrestling room and beat the crap out of each other. Yeah, it worked in the beginning until somebody believed and said, I could beat the big guy by just getting good with my
I remember
jiu-jitsu.
that was Maurice Smith. Like he's the guy that really brought striking in the UFC.
Oh my God!
And I think it was when he fought Coleman, and Coleman turned purple and had this long ass, like he had no wind anymore, and Maurice knew enough to stay up.
He nailed with a face kick.
God damn,
right
man.
To the face.
Yeah, amazing.
Yes, so it's like the person that's always willing to get a little better, learn a little bit more. It's like you're always getting better. That's like my best learning is when
that's the hard thing about being an older athlete.
It's
because you're better than you ever been, but you're not responding the same way as you could when you're 25.
Listen, there's the truth behind you can't always do it. Like when you're 50, you just can't go out and fight anymore. There's a window of opportunity to do certain things. That's the truth about sports.
Yeah, that's why deciding now is important, like what you're talking about. I really love that conversation.
Yeah. Now, and listen, if I tell people, I go, if you don't have anybody to surround, you guys get to hang out pretty much every day.
As much as we can, yeah.
Right. But let's say there's people out there that might have to decide that the people they're hanging out with are bringing them down. Now you don't have anybody to surround yourself with. You have to find mentors through a podcast. And then maybe you join a gym or a place like that, and that becomes your new. You'll have to go out and find.
And also deciding though too on that level is like, I've had to decide I can't be around this person. I can't be here. And whether that even means moving towns, like there's no victims in this day and age, man. Like you said, you got the internet available to you, got all this stuff. You get to choose who you're around. We're all grown-ass people. I hear the thing, like I grew up in this small town in Michigan, and people are like, oh, if I could get out of this town, or people say that in New Mexico. Like wherever I've been, people say that about wherever it is that they're from. And it's like, there's no fence around it, motherfucker. We got air travel and everything. You can go anywhere.
Capability to succeed is there's like no but.
And there's the number one word is, I think, is can't.
Can't.
Is people that live in that can't, like they're always. It doesn't matter what their situation is going to be.
There's always somebody who's proven. You're like you see somebody who's doing it, who's got like not in the best situation. They do it. You're like. That's what I always tell athletes. I go, why a kid from Camden win a state title in wrestling?
Yeah.
Why are kids from Camden going to all these D1 football teams? I go, they're worried about getting shot on the way home. There's no strength coach or any of that.
It doesn't
there.
matter what neighborhood you grew up in. There's somebody down the block from that neighborhood that is like in a not as good a spot as you.
And I think that's why, like,
and none of it dictates how good you can
it's
be or can't be.
uncomfortable, and they know how to just fight their way out. Comfort is just the man. It will kill you.
It can be a bummer. I mean, we fight towards comfort. We go to struggle to have some comfort, but like, you better dive right back into that cold water plunge and just live in it.
How crazy is that? We do. I'm so tired. I'm worrying so much. Then you get like a day or two, and it's just life is like training. Like, you got to go hard, and then you back off a little bit, and you're able to
recharge it.
Yeah, you're able to come back. Again. Yeah,
it's a cool thing. We're going down to Miami for this thing. You know
you going
Brick New York and Brick CrossFit,
the Wadapalooza,
and so Wadapalooza's down there. But then Jason Khalipa and JP Perlmutter are they're running a business course, and a lot of that talk is like that.
Yeah, I just saw on your. Did you just interview JP or no?
We just talked last night a little bit, and
I saw it on your Instagram or maybe his Instagram.
Could be. We took a picture last. Yeah. We were just there yesterday. Yeah.
The business stuff, a lot of times when I'm like helping somebody with business, I'm like, even if they're like getting the things, I'm like, here's the difference. I go, I just gave you the information, but you don't do it. So you're giving them stuff, and then they're like, can we do a conference call? I go, everything we just spoke about is everything I just emailed you, but you're not doing it. Like,
that's immaturity, right? That's the same with the immature.
I don't
athlete.
know what it is because I've seen.
No, I did the push-ups later though,
sure,
or whatever, and it's like, well, you need to do them every day. I said.
Or there's sometimes you think like sometimes I'll work with a coach who owns a gym, who's married with kids, and they're like, my gym is like in the red, whatever. Like, I'm losing. I don't think I'm going to be able to pay rent. I'm like, dude, how are you not taking action in this situation? Like, you're going to be unable to take care of your family, and you're still not doing the work.
What do you think about that? I mean, because there's mindsets that'll do it, and there's mindsets that don't, and there's people that get tricked into thinking they're entrepreneurial. And
being an entrepreneur
really should just be
freaking hard.
They should really just get a job somewhere where they get a check every week.
Gary Vaynerchuk says that. He goes, not everybody's meant to be number one. Some people are meant to just be the employee. They're not meant to run it. And being an entrepreneur is friggin' hard because it's just never ending. You don't know. Joe DeSanto says, he goes, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. He's like, you think you're there, and then something happens. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Some people should not have done it, and they're better off just going and doing the work.
Dudes that are good at it make it look easy too. It's like,
and it's not easy.
We're talking.
It's work.
We're talking to Troy Denning. He's got a tattoo shop downtown here, and I was like, well, how long you been with these guys? And he said, oh man, like some of these guys have been with me 10, 15 years or whatever, and it's hard because I always think like, one of those guys will always go start another shop or something. He's like, dude, it's so hard. He's like, it's being the owner is not an enviable position. These guys get to go whenever they want. They don't have to have responsibility. Yep. And that's the fucking truth. And another buddy, Rob Orlando, he had a guy that was a number one dude. They're really great coach, this and that. And he got to thinking like, I'll be the man. And it's like, it's not being the man. It's like him owning that gym and doing that is such a being of service that it's harder than it pays him back. You know what I mean? And the guy went out on his own. He did and now the dude is like trying to train out of his. He went back to high school days basically, and it's like not everybody. I've been seeing it over. I'm just trying to be more aware, but like the thing you're talking about is like not everybody is equal. Not everybody's got like some people are better as a support. Some people are better as a like it's really knowing yourself, to know yourself. And so what are the things do you think that people can do to get into that where they have more knowledge about themselves, or they're more open-minded to see it and not believe some crazy hysterical shit about themselves, but they've worked towards the position that they merit?
If you want to be whatever it is, let's say you want to run a coffee shop, then go work inside a coffee shop and ask the owner, I will do anything. Like
that's the exact same thing JP said yesterday. He goes, go work at a gym for $3 an hour.
Nobody's willing to do it. They're not willing to do it. This is what I always like see who's going to be a good coach. Awesome. Which coach is going to pull out.
All the best people say the same shit.
I would say which coach is going to pull out the vacuum, or a session at a group ends, you see me wiping down the equipment. Let me see what this coach is going to do. Will he grab, the antibacterial and the towel? Will he clean it? That's who I could tell. We had, and I actually don't like to do interns because it just sucks the energy out of me. And a buddy of mine, former Navy SEAL, he's like, it behooves you. You must share this knowledge. You must educate people. So a kid comes to my gym. He wants to volunteer or intern. He gives his resume, and he just sucked the energy out of me because little things like if I would say, go get this book on Amazon used for $3.95. I don't have the money. Like anytime you gave him a piece of advice, there's a reason why not. Finally, I just said, dude, I cannot have you in here anymore. I go, you tell me you want to learn. Every time I give you a piece of actionable and a little actionable item, you've got a ridiculous excuse behind you don't have the money, you don't have the time. Like when people say those things, like when people are like, I didn't get your email, I'm like, dude, I easily get 50 emails a day. I have no problem getting back to people. I just do it. But everybody it goes back to the early years. If you've been taught to be a half-asser and to make excuses, then you don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Like there's no shame involved in it.
There's all these little details count. And I think I learned it. I remember when I was driving up here, I don't know what made me think of it, but I was thinking of I was in 6th grade and I was working as a busboy in like a real blue collar town. This place was called Bud's Hut. And I remember carrying like the dishes like so heavy, and like I'd bring it into there, and like the dishwasher, these two Polish guys, if it was like a heavy bus tray, they'd like flex their bicep. If they were eating dinner, they'd curse you out in Polish. And I was like, oh man, I'm 11 years old, these fucking guys are gonna kill me. And then this old man, 60-something years old, says, kid, get over here. How old are you? I said, I'm 11, sir. He goes, go bring me a cup of coffee, and if it's not fresh, I don't want it. I'm like, I don't even know how to make coffee. What's fresh? Yeah. I go back, I figure out how to make the coffee, I bring it back. The lady at the bar says to me, don't ever tell anybody you're 11. You tell them you're 16. I was like, oh,
that's
shit.
Awesome.
I remember just like working in that, like being a busboy, like, oh, you see a little piece of the paper that goes around the straw, you don't leave it there, you pick it up. And these little details, whether it's
I'd do business, shit at my gym, and I'd see a Kleenex on the floor or something.
You own a jiu-jitsu gym, right?
Yeah, and I'd walk by it, and I got like 3 or 4 coaches there, and I'd be like, so I've been walking by that for the last 42 hours.
Shit.
I've been walking by it, and I've seen all you guys. I've waited for that long to watch all you guys walk by it.
Yeah.
How many fucking times before you guys get to be about some shit? Like, whose responsibility is it, if not ours? And then guys will come in and they say, hey, I'd like to train, and maybe I can clean or something for something, and I'll even clean the mats. And I get offended. I'm like, that is not, you would have to work.
That's an honor
to become
to
the guy that I clean my mats, motherfucker. Like, you don't get to, like, that's not like, you have to earn that.
You know that cleaning that reminds me of, I had seen years ago, I remember my wife was watching that show of it's called like Blowout, where the guy was like that high-end hairdresser.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like $500 to get a haircut with him, but then he was shampooing somebody's hair, and he's like, this is really good, because it brings me back to where I started, getting paid like $2 to wash somebody's hair. So there are many times where I mop the gym floor and clean the bathroom and do it myself. And what would a business coach say? That's below you. Your dollar. What are you worth? But there's a couple things. There's number one, I could count on myself to do it right. That's number one. Number two, it reminds me not to be spoiled. It reminds me of where I came from. To me, that's important. I don't know, maybe I should let it go. Yeah.
Character's not a set thing that it's like, now you have this.
Yeah.
That's for me, that's a thing.
Now.
That's a thing that you have to continually be polishing that.
I don't vacuum. I don't pick that up. Like, punch me in the face if I fucking say that. And I learned that, I had a coach that I probably should have been tougher on him for those little things. Every time I'd come to the gym, the lid of the garbage was on the floor. To me, I was like, whatever, just let it slide, let it slide. But it added up. The electric was always left on and not off. Those things added up in a negative way, and it's my fault for not saying, when are you going to be about excellence
And
versus
in
good
a
enough.
business where it's so cutthroat and where it's like the rent does matter and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like either you didn't see that lid on the floor, and I did because I'm aware of the whole thing because I have to be
Yeah, your
to be able
eyes
to
are
make it
kinda-
operate.
yes.
So either you don't care or you're not aware. Neither one of those is acceptable. They're both highly unacceptable
I know.
everywhere
And
in life.
We're afraid to say it. And where does that come from? Because you're like, God, this coach is good, but not great.
Anytime you say
Why?
but,
What's wrong with greatness, right? We're so
so
afraid to have
crazy.
high expectations of people.
As
and
if
of
we're not
course-
gonna meet 'em.
Right. So I remember my younger brother, college wrestler, state qualifier.
How many brothers do you have? 3?
I got 2 brothers. Very different. One is lives out in West Hollywood. Would be an interesting interview for you guys. He had
Sure.
a lot of tumultuous times.
Is that the long, lanky one?
No,
That's
he
your younger
lives
brother?
in. My older brother lives in Queens, and long story short, with him was after high school, he went to college for a year. Then he, behind my parents' back, joined I think the Army or the Marines. Each neighbor on each side of our house, one was a Marine recruiter, one was the Army, and I can't remember where he went. And the one guy called my mom, and then they're like, if you're going to the military, you're going to the Israeli Army. He went to the Israeli Army, and then he came back here, officer candidate school. He was out in Cali. Now he's here, and he's like very religious, just changed. My younger brother, long story short, didn't have the mentors, hung around with the wrong people, got involved with drugs pretty heavily, went to jail. I remember when he was in jail, I remember like sending him this is how long ago this was, sending him like photos of like that Bart Vale shoot fighting book because he was getting into fights. But he lost what he was really about. He's been clean for like 11 years. He does a lot of hip hop stuff. And but he's still like he doesn't have that belief that will take him from good to great. He's still he always needs somebody that like
Right. Like you said, it takes time to cultivate.
it does. But you also need somebody that's like, motherfucker, we don't have the time, and now you've gotta go for it. So it's so interesting how all my brothers and I like come from the same house, but if you hung around with different friends, experienced a couple different things, it just you make a left turn instead of staying straight or
See
right.
that when you see studies on twins,
it changes
and they all
everything.
Get real different,
Oh yeah, how they could be
different
so
experience.
different.
We can have the same experience. You internalize it different than me. Like
People say it all the time. Like, I can't believe you guys, you guys are related.
Right.
But, coming back to that excellence
I'd love to meet
thing,
him, man.
Yeah, I'll put you in touch
That'd
with
be
my
great.
younger one. He, I always tell him, I go, you got to join like a CrossFit and be around these kinds of people. And he tries. He's on an airplane every other day,
Sure.
but he doesn't believe in himself to go. But he's had some of those tastes of success.
A lot of times
where-
we just need somebody on our side just to be there,
That's
be
it.
beside us.
He would probably be better off if he was like training in my gym, always
Sure.
around. Talking about like the success with the gym and people saying, "Oh, I'll clean the gym," and you're right. Like, if I know that when you say that, like my one gym is $195 a month. I mean, if everybody's got their $300 phones, your fucking $200 sneakers, all this shit,
like $30 at the bar every night.
yeah,
or
you're going
whatever.
out. It's like I know that if I said I'll give you a $50 discount, like, is that what you want? A $50 discount? Like, what's that going to do? It's not. I mean, I've had teams come where we've heavily discounted them, and then what happens is the parents think you're just another John Smith strength coach.
Just devalues it.
Yeah, it devalues it. And I tell people, I remember I flipped out on the kids one time. I can't remember, they were doing shit. I said, you guys half-ass it. I was like, I'll fucking burn this gym down before I let this gym be average. I will burn it down. And I will. I'll run my gym back out of a garage with 5 wrestlers if I need to.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck if there's 5 or 500. But if you're coming through there, all in. And I've gotten back to that. I was very extreme, and I found myself getting a little bit soft, giving people a little bit of time to turn the corner. And then I learned that doesn't help anybody. And now I'm, what people would call, he's crazy. It's too much. He's too intense. But I always say to people, I go, why should I be punished for trying to push people to be
Right.
succel
Well,
and
at
teach
the end
them
of the
to be
day, what are we
hard?
here for? Are we here for results and performance?
Yeah.
Or are we doing something else?
Are we
Like,
good enough?
What else are you doing?
But like,
Because you don't need me for that other stuff. You can get that by yourself. But what I got over here is this. It's so, hey, and that's the thing too. Knowing yourself, like knowing that about you, like, well, I tried to do this because I was maybe would that get me more members, or would that be, or whatever the thing is that you think you might need.
I keep coming
and then you're
back
like,
to the same
oh,
shit
I
that
can't
works.
fucking have that.
Like, you know what's so funny is like with running gyms, like it's very big to run Facebook ads. I remember I ran Facebook ads and I was like, these guys suck. They suck. They fucking suck. Everybody wants a shortcut. They want a shortcut. They want the discount.
Call for the best deal.
Yeah. Oh, when does
like,
this
I
thing
am not
end?
like the others.
They just wanted to end. So I found that the best thing has always been through the word of mouth, the referral, or when I go and train a team and I tell them, I go, here's what I do, fellas. I go, I know I'm not supposed to be cursing in front of you guys, but I build bad motherfuckers if you're willing to do the work. And the truth is, most don't want to do it because you think everything, I tell them, you think it's all good enough. But I've learned to just come back to just being hard. Because
I think one of the best things that like a lot of the best athletes that came through Jackson's had come because Joey Villaseñor beat them in competition somewhere, and they'd be like, maybe I need to get some of that too. It's like it's through the ultimate hardness.
Dads were like, I got tired.
Maybe that's the
I got
spot
tired of seeing
out.
these kids with underground strength gym shirts beating my son. I got tired of it. Some dads, they're like, they don't care. To me, like, I can't jive with that. Like, if you don't care, I
think it's like
over.
that thing too. Like,
it's tough to care. It's so much easier if
it's
life
easier
would be
say,
so
you're
easy
fine.
if I didn't give a shit.
It's like kids with like people talk about diets and stuff, and I got really heavily into like a paleo diet and stuff like that. And I would talk to people at the gym about it, and they because like I don't want to offer it, like, because that's people get so emotional about it. But like people would ask me, and I would tell them, and then eventually like. In that conversation, like 40 seconds in, they would start defending their diet. Well, I ate pretty good. I'm like, you asked me what I did,
right? I'm
and
not
like,
attacking
I'm not like you. And you started
this happens,
but they get and then
training too.
Then they go, I can't do it really because of my kids, and my kids don't like. I'm like, how old are your kids? They're like, oh, they're 3 and 7 or whatever. I'm like, are you not calling the shots at your house?
When
like,
somebody asks me, they're like, you ate that shit? I'm like, yeah, and it's all on me. That was my choice to eat any of that shit. I go, so I know that, and it's the same thing, like you talk about nutrition. Let's say you guys sit down, and let's say they don't know who you are, and you're out dinner with some friends, like, hey, it's my friend Keith, he fought in the UFC. Then the guy's always got to be like, yeah, I used to fight too.
Exactly.
Like, everybody, I'm like, my friend invites me over for a barbecue. It's all his buddies. They're like, yeah, this is Zach. He owns that underground strength gym. They're like, yeah, I'm certified in this. I'm like, I didn't even come here to argue with that. I'm not competing against you. If you want to compete, we could compete, but I didn't come out. I didn't come here just here hanging out.
To have a nice time.
Yeah, but they're always like, yeah, and I did the complex training. I'm like, they're so worried about like,
I would be doing it, except I hurt myself in high school or so, and it's like, you don't need to tell me how come you're not.
Excuses,
you know what I mean?
You got to own everything. Excuses are you giving yourself or others the green light to not be great?
That goes back to like being around, like who you're around. Like you're like, oh, you and Keith have the benefit of each other or whatever, and it's like it's true. Like I'm only around like I'm not about shit. But like everybody I'm around are bad motherfuckers. They're fantastic. All the people I get to be around Ruben, I get to be around Lacey, Keith, fucking
it's amazing.
Whoever it is, Logan, at Deuce Gym, like all the people that are in my life are fucking savages. But
so that's the normal. That's normal.
That's because I know I suck a little bit, and so I go.
We all suck a little bit, right?
I better be around great people.
Yeah.
Because I'll sit idle without those people. I need that community. So I got what I was proactive about was being proactive about building the correct community around me. Like, you better be around this stuff because you'll want to kill yourself if you're this other guy. It's like dieter for me.
Yeah.
Like, this is my life. And so you better choose who you're around carefully, and all that stuff about like, oh, I can't get out of this town, or I would, but this or that. I'm like, I had to have all that away from me because it's like Keith talks about, like that thing about seek death, and it's like, if you're not really looking to live in every way, you're already dead anyway. We're all already dead anyway. What are you going to do now? Like, if it's all done already, there's no saving for a rainy day. There's none of that really exists.
Yeah.
So who are you going to be right now in the only time that we know that we got? You better get after it fully in this very moment.
Can you imagine if this was what people get to really listen to every day? it would I feel like this is what everybody needs to hear.
Yeah, it's the reason that like we started this. Like Rogan really pushed me, and he goes, "Dude, you get these awesome conversations with these awesome people. Like, there's a kid in Iowa that needs to fucking hear it, and he's not having that conversation."
Because there's the flip side to that, where you're like, "Well, I won't be number one on iTunes," but then somebody emails you, and they're like, "Dude, you pulled me.
Life.
You pulled me out of my hole." Just those
you talk
things.
about the emails. I can't even believe it. People are like, "Oh, I'm sure you hear this or whatever," and I'm like, "Dude," and it brings tears to my eyes. And that's the other thing too, Zach. I think it's important. Like we are, three like high functioning, tough people. Like it's not arrogant to say that. It's just what it is, Like but like the thing is the kindness that's coupled with that. It's like me being me allows me to be a kinder, more loving, caring person than I could have ever been otherwise, because I'm not hiding behind my insecurities. I'm not hiding behind any of that. And like, that's the thing too, is like the biggest strength that I have is that kindness, I think, in that way. And I wouldn't have it without the other thing. When you talk about being tough, being a combat athlete, being a disciplined person, it's like that wouldn't exist to the same degree, I don't believe, in myself.
You've got your yin and your yang.
Yeah.
Nobody's like, well, we're not completely perfect, but we're so cool with like our, I don't want to call them weaknesses, or we're so cool with the things that aren't maybe intense. And
as long as you're honest about it,
you're just cool. Yeah, like,
you know what I mean? It's like it all is what it is. It's like,
I say to people, look, man, I'm not. They're like, you got to do your videos on YouTube. You got to take your shirt off. You got to like do this. I go, but that's just not me. Right. And I'm cool with being me, and I'm okay. I used to, I used to look at like, oh man, I only got this many views. Now I'm like, maybe I'm only getting 500 or 1,000 views, but I'm getting to probably the more right people than somebody who's got 100,000 views, and it's maybe like a 12-year-old kid, and they're not really talking about something that's really gonna change them. Yesterday I got an email from one of my kids, and he goes, the day of every match I read your emails, it fires me up. And he goes, I was going against a real tough kid, and we were tied up in the third period, and I just out-hustled him. He goes, I just out-hustled him, and I just want you to know that your emails, they're getting through to me. Yeah. And it's so funny, because on that day you're like, did I send too many emails? Did that email not even inspire somebody? But then you hear that and you're like, I got to keep doing it. This is what I'm supposed to be doing then. Yeah.
That's great, man.
Cool.
It's true too, because I feel like that your words echoing in that kid's head. It's like I got a message from a guy, and he was a real bad crystal meth user, and he and we talk a lot. Like I worked with him years ago, and I'd spent a lot of time with him and try to help him however I could or whatever. And it was years later, I got a voicemail from him, like 7 or 8 years later, and he goes, Tait, and I wish I still had the phone. I had it on. He goes, I just want you to know, man, that like what you said, like I know I was all fucked up in that whole time and like whatever. And he says, but I've been clean for 2 years now. I got a wife, I got a kid, I got a business that's running good. I got a little radio show. And he says, every time he says those words, man, they echo in my head.
Yeah.
And he says, and that's what would keep me upright a lot of the time. And still today, when I give advice, I'll hear your voice in my head.
It's the pay it forward.
I want you to know that it mattered, and like these things that we don't know that matters.
Yeah.
Like anybody listening or anywhere else, I just go, man, you consider that when you're trying to give to somebody in that way, that shit, it matters, man.
It's like, we're successful. We got.
I wouldn't know that without him. I wouldn't know that. Like,
you hear
so
that one
that
person,
we're open to each
and
other.
that we give to that one person because we're passionate, we care, and that person comes back and says, "Man, you pulled me out of that hole, or you stopped me from suicide, or you changed my outlook." Then you're like, "I got to keep going," and it's that movie, Pay It Forward, because you're giving. You help that one person. Then they help 2. Those 2 people help 2 more. That's now 4. Then it's 8. Then it's 16, 32. It is
uncountable.
It is the Pay It Forward motto. And that's really what my buddy who had leukemia, I remember he would help me with the business stuff. I'm like, Alan, how do I pay you? How do I pay you? He's like, you pay it forward. And every year since then, we do a big fundraiser for leukemia, lymphoma. And I was thinking to myself last year, I was like, how much of this goes to the people who have cancer? Like, where's this? I started thinking it. And then he texted me and he He goes, this one lady that I train, she had leukemia, lymphoma. She had leukemia. He's like, now she's going to Hawaii to run her first Ironman. And he's like, the Leukemia Lymphoma Foundation paid for her training and is paying for her whole travel and everything. And so he gave me that one story, and I was like, that's why.
Yeah.
And then I stopped thinking about, who is this reaching? Where is this going to? Right. And it changed. You think these like little things, like if you're just gonna just care and give, like if we got to come back, care, give, and like that.
The idea being, it kind of doesn't matter where it goes. What matters is the intention of your action of doing it.
It will find its way.
It's like that thing about forgiveness. I think it's like if you fuck me over and I forgive you, it's not you. It's like I'm setting me free. You know what I mean? Because I can't have that.
I've been there too, man. Where you hold on, somebody, you're like, he did this to me, they did that,
and you're in prison.
I learned to just say, I put myself in that situation, and it's really my fault, and I gotta let it go. That's over. Whatever. Maybe they were thinking this or that, and certainly there are some people out there that are cold. Like they will cut you, and that's it. But
that doesn't bear anything on you,
right? How will that help me to hold or to become that way? It just won't.
Yeah.
So it's like,
or to not be kind to the next person because I'm afraid that person will be
still holding on. Holding on is, and I've done that before too. It is and dude, you're saying that. I remember I was holding on to something, and a buddy of mine, crazy successful. And I don't want to mention his name because everybody knows him. Amazing. We'll talk about it off record. But that was his advice. He's like, you have to get the cancer out of your body. He goes, until then, you will not move forward. He goes, he said, you got to get the poison out of your body. That's what he said. He goes, you gotta let it go, dude. He goes, you keep holding on to it, nothing's moving forward. And I remember as soon as I did just start to let it go, not completely, but it was like, took a process. The business took off. My family life got better. Just my life in general was like, it's just like you feel it like getting out of you, and you gotta let that shit go. The past is gone.
It's only lessons, man.
Lessons.
Yeah.
This is what school should be about.
A buddy of mine, he goes, I was fucking sore, like pretty upset at a guy, and like it doesn't matter how legitimate it is. It was real legitimate too, and he goes. You talk about him a lot. And I go, yeah, the motherfucker and what he did. And I've got reason. And he goes, you know what that anger is like? And I go, what? He goes, the more you talk about it, you think about it, you dwell on it. He says, it's like you're drinking poison hoping that he dies. And that's what it felt like, because I felt it makes you feel dark. It gets you, and like, just let go of that shit.
You gotta let it go. And I think everybody will go through it. Nobody goes through a smooth life. You just don't. And whoever could teach it to you, the faster you learn to just do that letting go, and that takes practice, because those times come back around. You just got to let it go.
Do you plan on doing seminars or anything like that more? Like you've had some speaking engagements? Do you have stuff that's regular?
I used to do a lot more certifications, a lot of them. And I was never really a big fan on traveling, mainly because I get legitimately sick when I fly, sometimes. So what I learned is last year I flew a lot, like sometimes flying the same day, Chicago in the morning, come back at night, Atlanta in the morning, come back at night. But what I learned is trust my gut instincts. Every time I'm away, I'm like, damn, I wish I was with my wife and kids. I wish I was with my wife and kids. And I went back to an old business lesson I learned from a guy that said, you could run, if you're an entrepreneur, you could run your business according to your own rules. And when I share that, I go ethically, right? But what he meant is, if you live in like the Florida Keys and people got to take like a puddle jumper plane to get you, and that's where you want to do it. And I also learned that my best certs come out of my gym. They're good when I do them elsewhere. I've done them in California, Texas, Florida, up and down the East Coast. But the best ones are when they come in and train with my athletes, experience it, and it's more of an experience for them. So I do that more, and
I feel like that's what we really give. We give our energy. We create an energy.
I want them to experience it. Last year, I was supposed to do a seminar at a guy's gym, and people think that they can market and build it up, but a lot of times they can't. It wasn't going well. And a month out, there's 3 people signed up. I said, dude, I don't want to pull a dick move on you, but I go, my gut and heart tell me that I shouldn't do the cert at your gym. There's 3 people. If I don't want to push it, like what you were saying.
Right.
We're not like, buy the coffee, but here it is. So I said, I'm going to move it to my gym. I'll let the 3 people know. One person, I said, if you could make it, make it. If not, I'll refund your money. One person wanted a refund, said it to my gym. We had like 12 people come instead of 3. And then the 2 that came were like, I'm so glad you did this because I wanted to experience
you gave 'em
experience.
yeah, that's dope.
So now I, pretty much after last year, all that traveling, sometimes I'm like, it's like you can't even pay me enough. And some people say, yeah, what if I give you $25,000 for the day?
Sure.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to make that happen. But sometimes I'm just like, people, and also other people don't want to travel. I've been to Austin, and then some
Right.
dude like 45 minutes away is like, yo, let me know when you're in my neck of the woods. I'm like, homeboy, I just left my family.
I was in your neck of the woods.
I just flew here for 4.
Entitled
Yeah.
motherfucker.
In the early years of doing the cert, I remember there was dudes in almost the first year and a half, there was always one guy that would come down, and he's like, yeah, I'm sleeping in my car tonight. And then somebody would be like, nah, man, just come share my hotel and
Right.
just sleep. There was people coming constantly from England, from UK.
That's what they're saying about the CrossFit certs right now is that they say they're cannibalizing each other. People are so entitled anymore. Like Rogan talks about, and he goes, "It's too easy to get food." Is the problem with people? People
Yes.
can go and they can get food so easily that they're just sloppy and slovenly. And I always thought, like, I remember looking at back in the day, and I was like, farmers are tougher people just because they know about life and death and the use of things. Like it's like, and that's a toughness of life that people
They're
know
tough.
about,
Yeah.
But like, all those guys are like, it can be in Anaheim, and people will
They
be
won't
like,
go unless
well,
it's
when,
in their
when it comes
backyard.
into Hollywood, I'll go.
Mhm.
It's like that's right there. That's like
They do it, and see, yeah, people
they're
don't
like, I'll
want.
wait till it's at my gym specifically. I won't go across town.
Which to
It's
me, I
ridiculous.
look at the lessons in it of like, that's a
We're
business.
going to talk about you're going to want it no matter what, but you won't come across town. Got it. Okay.
Right.
Stay
And that's,
home.
That's a business owner right there.
Yep.
And I don't look at it like I do and I don't. And I don't look at people like they are my competition, but I understand that in business, they are your competition.
Sure.
It is the way it is. But when I see that, I'm like, how it's so easy to win.
Dude,
they
one
don't
of
want
the-
to work.
one of
I'm
the
just going to
things
outwork them
that
an
made
inch,
me-
and I'm winning.
One of the things that made me so like confident in a way is I would look at like other people. I'm like, they won't even show up. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
I just show up and
Just
I'm going
show
to
up.
keep the job.
You show
if I do
up.
kind of good, I'm going to be a superstar. I'm like, what?
I feel like it's easier
so
now.
Crazy. It
Maybe
is
because I'm more aware of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's easier now.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the other thing. Like with the certifications, I found that I came to a point where I was pushing them, and I don't like that at all.
Right.
You either want to do this or you don't. And if
Come in hungry.
right? And
Yeah.
if it's too expensive for you, like come on, bro. Like this shit is not that
Well,
hard.
And if you're too dumb to know that you're hungry, then you're going to starve to death. Good luck.
Yeah.
Or you got some secret money somewhere, whatever. Cool. But you're not going to inspire or encourage anybody because you don't know how to do it. It's kind of like a dude that's already super physically fit trying to be a trainer or something. I'm like, you don't know what it's like to come back from nothing. You don't know what it's like to build that. You're just
Right.
You
So
have that.
if like a former NFL player becomes a high school strength coach, he doesn't relate at all to the weakest kid on the team. There's only 1 or 2% that are just genetic
Right.
freaks. The others can't do a push-up. They can't.
The best
squat.
athletes are not good coaches generally.
Right. And so I think maybe that's what helps me as a coach is I could relate to the fight and to working around things physically,
Yeah.
mentally. And I always look at like my early times of like going to these educational seminars. I remember when I was a teacher, I called out sick on Friday, and the seminar was Saturday, Sunday. So I would drive Friday morning like down to Florida. So you got like a 15, 18-hour car
Oh,
ride.
damn.
Then Sunday, I remember I'd leave the seminar like 2 hours early, and I remember getting home at like 3 a.m., 5 a.m., sleeping an hour, and then waking up and going to work. So, to me, that was where the beauty was. If it was in my backyard, like, see, I like thrive on that struggle. One of my coaches woke up late missed the class. I said, listen, I'm not going to say I've never done it. I'm not going to say I never made that mistake. But I go, let me tell you a story. I go, when I used to, my first coaching job, me and my buddy worked 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Saturday, Sunday. I go, that was when I turned 21. I go, we'd go to the city on a Friday night. We'd leave the club at 3, 4 in the morning. We'd go to the diner, and then we'd open up the gym. I go, we made it. I go, you guys got to do it. And I learned my lesson by not being tough on my other coach, by accepting good enough. And I said, you listen, crank your alarm clock. If you're going to go party, I'm not going to say I never party. We all party. Go fucking party. But then come and fucking crush it here at the gym. I'm counting on you, and so are these kids.
Yeah, I need an ally, goddammit.
That's it.
And I need everybody to be an ally.
So now I don't apologize anymore for expecting greatness.
Yeah.
I don't. I'd rather be punished for it than people liking me because I fit in.
Right.
And that's also scary to me. Like, if I'm on the side of the majority, I really start looking at where I'm at, and I'm like, probably not in the right spot then.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that, like, that thing about, like, if you got, it's better to have a lion leading 10 sheep than one sheep leading 100 lions, kind of thing, or whatever. It's just like, you can't. It'll find its own water. That weakness will, and people will settle for that.
If you give them
you
the
gotta
easy,
raise the bar.
You got to make it hard.
Yeah.
No matter how old.
Where can they find you? Email you, all that kind of
Just
stuff. Where they find your book?
Yeah, that book's on Amazon or Dragon Door, undergroundstrengthbook.com. It's on Kindle, and
where do you get the most money for it?
I don't get a whole lot of money for it, dude. I remember I got the first paycheck. I was like, damn. There's what's the book is called, the Encyclopedia of Underground Strength and Conditioning. The way this worked was actually, talking about hard work. I was partnered up with a pretty high-end publisher, and the way they make it work is they team you up with like a co-author. He interviews you. They pay for the photographer.
Right.
They came out, spent 3 days doing everything. Then we were doing the interview process on phone. And to make a long story short, the person who was interviewing me, that whole team of people were basically like vampires, meaning like they didn't start working they didn't wake up, I think, till like 4 in the afternoon. Then they'd work till like 4 in the morning. And the interview was always be at like 12 noon Eastern, 1 o'clock Eastern. And then the guy missed the phone call. And then a week later, every other one started missing. So I called the owner of the company.
You know what this book is about?
Yeah, I call the owner. I go, listen, man, John Smith here, my co-author's like, he can't wake up. He can't fucking do it. The guy gets back on track for like one call, and then the guy's like, basically bails out. He's like, it's interfering with my life. I can't do this. I go, dude, he wanted to do the interviews at like 9, 10 at night. I'm like, bro, I'm putting my kids to sleep at that time. And there's like a line where I have to draw where the work doesn't control you. And he's like, it's just not going to work. I was like, good, fuck you, dude. You're going to be fucking chicken shit about it? And I remember telling the story to my son. He's like, Dad said chicken shit. I said, don't be telling Mommy I'm cursing. I'll tell him the story about how I've learned to really stand up for myself. And one of those earliest lessons was you standing up for yourself in The Ultimate Fighter. It taught me a lot about, even when somebody is famous, right? Suppose, world,
right.
And
world
you're like,
or whatever.
well, dude, I don't fucking agree. And I remember I was like, fuck yeah, like stand up, people, and say I don't agree. So I remember I buy the photos back. I tell the guy basically, go fuck yourself, okay? You're chicken shit. I ain't working with you. And I was like, I don't have the time to do this. I got my gym. I'm doing the online shit. Hurricane Sandy happened. I'm trying to like recoup money. And what got me thinking was like, I'm just going to make an ebook. And then I was and then I'm going to let down every kid, the photos of those athletes. The photos are majority athletes, not me.
Right.
I wanted the book about the kids I train, not me. And the new publisher was like, you need to get some photos of yourself. But I remember I was like, if I quit, now I just taught those kids that you quit when it's tough. You quit when it's tough. They stayed with me. It was like almost 100 degrees those 3 days. Fucking sweating bullets. I mean, they were so hot. I mean, they were crushed. I know they were crushed. You'll see the photos of the kids. They're they're ripped. They're just tough. They're my favorites, these guys. And I was like, if I make this an ebook, I just failed them and I just quit on them.
Right.
So I speak
So
with Kelly
cool, man.
Starrett. I speak with Kelly Starrett, Brian McKenzie, and they goes, dude, who the fuck cares who your publisher is? Write this goddamn book. You're a fucking genius. Write this book. And I was like, you're right. And what started as just an instructional book became a book about stories of overcoming adversity. I said, because if I just teach squat, deadlift, tire flip, everybody knows that. There's no beauty behind it. So I started writing about why I began training. I started writing about all the mistakes I made, how we fixed them. Started writing about the different athlete that was, you know, everybody counted against him, but he fought through all the adversity, because a great book could change somebody's life.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, I read Arnold's Education of a Bodybuilder for like 3 years straight. I like literally envisioned myself as him, like training in basements, right? So I was like, I need this book to be a book that's going to change somebody's life, at least one life. So my athletes inspired me, and I also wanted something to like live on for my kids, and I started just changing my frame of reference. So in the back, I wrote about my grandparents who escaped the Holocaust from Poland. My grandfather was in the Polish army, the Russian army, then the Israeli army, and then and they lost their whole family to the Holocaust. So when I'm like, somebody telling me how tough
Life's
life
hard,
is,
yeah.
I stop and I'm like, man, we're so far removed from what hard is.
Yeah.
And that, I'm not going to say I don't have my times where
Sure.
I could handle it all, because there's many times where I don't. But then I just think of something like who I got to represent, my family, my grandparents, my kids. So that's what this book is about, being strong for life. Yeah, it's about training and all that. And some people were upset that I didn't map out like a 6-month program, but I said, I want you to figure it out for yourself.
Right.
There's all the whole system of what we do is in there,
Well, and
which
there's
is
a foundational
constantly
base.
evolving. Yeah.
It's not like
Figure it out on your own.
and have a mindset.
I don't want to
it. And if
dictate.
you don't
That's
give them,
what I
if
don't
you
want
don't
to
give
be.
a mindset first, what does
Yeah.
it matter? Like, here's your 6-week program. Who cares?
What I didn't want to be is to be a dictator. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to be a dictator to.
Yeah.
This is how, to me.
There's a lot of room to grow in different ways, for sure.
And if I say this is the path and no other way, then I'm not really a teacher. I'm not really a coach. So
and you're gonna maybe disagree with that 4 years from now.
it's
you know what I mean? It's here's
it
an evolving
evolves. That's
system,
the tough
for sure.
thing. It's when people are like, "Hey, how has your training changed?" I go, I can't even explain it.
Right.
You got to show up at my gym, because my 5 o'clock group trains different than 4 o'clock because of their mindset, because of their attitude, because of the match that's tomorrow or the football game that was yesterday. I go, it's evolving all the time. That I need you to be in here for me to explain it, especially when they ask me on Twitter.
Yeah,
Like, I just can't
There's not enough
explain it
characters,
all.
partner.
I can't explain it all, but that's the beauty. Go out and make the mistakes.
Killer. We'll
Just
go
do
pick
it.
up the book, man.
Cool.
Encyclopedia, Underground Strength and Conditioning. Zach Even-Esh.
Awesome.
And thank you so much
This was
for
great,
joining us,
dude.
dude. And
My kids want
really
autographs.
appreciate it.
They actually sent me with my daughter went on I guess on the iPad and like printed out photos of you guys.
Killer.
But I said, baby, it's gonna be raining, they'll be all smudged. I go, I'll get real photos.
Yeah.
She's like, they have to write the full name. And
Yeah.
dude, and you know, like
whatever they need, we'll send them everything.
my the first time I think my son had seen you on TV was in what was the movie with Denzel? Was it Equalizer? Is that what that was called?
Equalizer and Two Guns was Denzel too.
Equalizer, Jurassic Park. What were you in, Keith? You were in.
He was in Jurassic World with me. He was
That's
like,
right,
when
Jurassic World, yes.
When I shot out of the thing, he was sitting right across from me. Yeah.
So when my kids see that, it's so surreal for them. It's surreal for me. And what's weird is like I think
Have
you
you watched the
texted
Joaquin
me.
Phoenix movie?
Which one was that?
What's that called? Inherent Vice.
I don't think I've seen that.
He's got a great scene in there.
That's a recent
with Joaquin Phoenix.
He's the one that passed away, or
No, that was his brother. But
That's
this
right.
was just a year and a half ago or something that he filmed that.
I got to check it out.
Rad.
So yeah,
Yeah, Dust Till Dawn, the TV show.
Dusk Till Dawn. That's
Both
the
of us.
one
I was
you're
in like I think the second episode.
What do
and
you guys
He's in the
watch?
finale.
Do you guys watch TV? Are you TV
I
guys?
watched Game of Thrones. What else I watch?
I have not.
Netflix has changed everything for me,
Netflix
right?
has changed
I
everything.
geek out on the series.
I love the a lot of the 30 for 30 documentaries blow me away. The ESPN.
Yeah, those have gotten good as anything.
They're
man,
amazing. When we had some people over the house over the weekend, and I don't really watch traditional sports, basketball, football.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
hear my neighbor like flipping out during a football game. Raw motherfucker, like you were on like freaking out.
God, they're angry about
They're
that.
flipping out.
Yeah.
So the guys come over, and my wife had the TV on. I don't know I think it was college football. They're like, what games are on? I'm like, I don't really know. What channel are the games on? They're like, ESPN. I go, I don't even have ESPN.
Right.
They looked at me like they thought it was a joke.
Right.
But then last night I was over my in-laws' house, and my sister-in-law said, you got to watch this show, Homeland. Is that it?
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's a lot of seasons.
Yeah.
I watched the first 4 episodes. It's just, I'm
Yeah.
like, I gotta go to bed. I'll watch one more. I watched the first 5 episodes. I don't watch TV,
I got
but
sick and
dude,
I started
blew
watching
my
that
mind.
motherfucker. And
The first 5 episodes.
You can pause it.
Yes.
Right? But I couldn't. I had to pee
That
so
thing
bad. I couldn't
got
even
me.
pause it. I was just so riveted. I was like there the
Dude,
whole time.
It
was-
got me. And
Yeah.
now you guys, I think you're with the entertainment industry. They're getting a lot of the former SEALs coming in, so you're
Yeah.
around them. Plus in CrossFit, being with
Yeah.
Andy and some other guys, like you hear their story, and then you're so immersed in it. It just changes everything.
Yeah.
And also here, when 9/11 happened here was just that was, where I live 45 minutes away. You saw like the cloud of smoke for like 3 weeks.
Crazy.
Just like hovering. And I was at a seminar like a year ago. Maybe it's been a little. Maybe it was 2 years ago, and it was our conference room was here, and like right there they were building the ground zero, the memorial.
Right.
And I left. It just like crushed me. The guy that was holding it was from Australia, and I don't know, but like having my kids and meeting like the SEALs and a lot of these guys, like, and coming from a country where war is always going on.
Yep.
Like when I just kiss my kids goodnight, like I'm thinking about the guys that are fighting and just like how
Yeah.
it just changes the way I look at things. So that Homeland, like pulling me in a crazy way, almost like
yeah.
I'm like, damn, this shit's too much.
It's getting closer and closer, for sure.
It's crazy.
That's our next podcast.
Shit. Well, this was awesome, man.
Thanks,
I had an
dude.
honor being with you guys.
Man, I'm
and,
so glad you came down.
Cool.
Thanks for making the time and all that.
We got to make it happen. When you guys come out, if you come out in the summertime, my house we're very close to the beach.
Perfect.
So we could like ride bikes to the beach within like 6 minutes. It would be a really cool, it just would be cool. I mean, it would just be cool. Yeah, from here you could just take a train actually right into my town.
Killer.
Nice.
And
Wow,
we'll,
blast.
we'll send a bunch of stuff. Steven will remember, and
Awesome.
we'll get an address and all that, and send everything.
Cool. No,
Yeah.
don't send me stuff. I buy
Yes,
it.
we got to. We got
Don't
to.
do it.
All right, man. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, guys.
All right, people. I goddamn love that talk. And Zach is really, top build, inspirational, beyond compare. What a beauty. Anyway, I want to thank you for Caveman Coffee. Thank you from the bottom of our heart for all your support, your love, and your care. If you're interested in our products, cavemancoffee.com. You can find out all about us there. If you're in any city in Texas, please make your way to Concrete Cowboy. Go see my boy Rico Taylor. Search him out on Instagram too, or Dan Werk. Dan, Rico, really holding shit down over there. And of course, John Vels, one of the most beautiful men in the world out there helping us all. These are my partners in that endeavor, and it's really a fun place of positivity. Anyway, cavemancoffee.com, nuevocerveza.com, of course, and check it out. Also, for those of you in the California IA area, or those of you just looking for inspiration that is akin to what my man Zach is doing here, please, every single day, my friend Logan Gelbrich, at Functional Coach. Find him at Functional Coach. He's out there writing beautiful stuff on the deuce.com website. So look at deucegym.com. Find that and be inspired, man. Even if you don't work out, just the ideas that are there are transcendent. Really a beautiful, beautiful mind. And if you want to upgrade your life, you're going to want to expose yourself to that beautiful stuff. So please check him out. deucegym.com. And it's right on Lincoln Boulevard in Venice, California. And that's my joint, yo. That's where I go. Also, my personal gym back in Santa Fe, New Mexico, undisputedfitness.com. Check them out, undisputedfitness.com. Find all things 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu. Strongman and CrossFit in Santa Fe. It's the only place in town for all that. If you're in northern New Mexico, do yourself a favor and check out the family over at UndisputedFitness.com. Also, the first ever Caveman Coffee cave is in there. You can sit down and get something blended up by some beautiful people there. Ava, Karina, Nate Harris runs it out of there. So go check it out, UndisputedFitness.com, and tell them hello for me if I'm not there. Or if I am there, high five, fool. Let's drink coffee. All right, do or die, people. It's your life. You can either be all about it or you can mail it in. But it's really do or die. Because there's either getting to it and having it done fully. If you're doing 80% of it, you might as well have stayed home completely. Do it or die. Get in there. Shine on, people. I need you all to be beautiful. I need you all to keep trying, because that's the only thing that keeps me trying. All right? So until next time, shine on.